Chapter 221, The Terrifying Cat. Yu Beibei was entangled with Chu Pingfan and Yuer. Thanks to that, they had formed a feud with Ling Beiyun. The conflict between Ling Beiyun and Chu Pingfan was inevitable anyway. Chu Zan was trying to see if he could change the fate of a region. Based on his understanding of the Tao of Fate, Chu Pingfan had the chance to replace Ling Beiyun and become the Son of Fate of the Eastern region. The Son of Fate would have a natural advantage in the region due to his great luck. He would not die in a crisis, but would become stronger after each crisis. His enemies would also be suppressed by fate. Chu Pingfan cultivated the Extreme Tao. The Extreme Tao was very special. It carried the great fate of the Extreme Tao, so he was naturally not affected by the advantages Ling Beiyun had as the Son of Fate of the Eastern region. Therefore, when Ling Beiyun and Chu Pingfan fought, neither would have the upper hand in terms of fate, which meant that the outcome of the fight would be solely determined by their strength. Chu Pingfan's strength had improved by leaps and bounds. After fighting many times in the Eastern region, he had already advanced from the 4th level of the Emperor Realm to the 6th level of the Emperor Realm. In terms of cultivation, he was still weaker than Ling Beiyun. However, he did not fear the latter since he still had his trump cards to rely on. The breakthrough point was Yuer. Chu Zan took out the good luck charm and infused it with his Tao aura. He waved it lightly, and the power of fate and Tao wrapped around the good luck charm. An invisible and mysterious power instantly spread out and headed toward the Eastern region. Just a slight change will do, and Chu Pingfan should have a chance to succeed. Chu Zan put away the good luck charm and stopped paying attention to the Eastern region. With the Divine Realm sky-shaking golden rock around, there would be no problems. He did not dare to use the good luck charm to control the fate of a region rashly, for fear of causing some unknown effects. The Tao of Fate was too mysterious. The 20-year milestone was approaching, and Chu Zan could not wait to see what reward he would receive. The Asura Ancient Land was about to open, and a great show was about to begin. The Heavenly Tao Talisman plan was about to be implemented, and Chu Zan needed to seize this opportunity. Once the first step of the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan was successfully implemented, then he only needed to slowly strengthen the Heavenly Tao Talisman, strengthen the laws of heaven and earth in the Heavenly Tao Talisman, and slowly nibble away at the current laws of heaven and earth in the northern zone. It would proceed silently and not attract any attention. Chu Zan liked the feeling of quietly controlling everything. The Heavenly Spirit Cat was lying on the wall of the courtyard, feeling bored. Ever since the sky-shaking golden rock had gone to look for Chu Pingfan, the Heavenly Spirit Cat had lost its playmate. It did not want to look for Chu Pingfan, as the latter preferred carving. Moreover, Su Shaner and Chu Yun would not let it leave either. As such, the Heavenly Spirit Cat had to laze around, bored. It had already gone to the Chu family's ancestral residence to play a few times, and it was so bored that it had even knocked over the Chu family's pill furnaces a few times. The Chu family's disciples had seen Chu Yun carrying it around many times, so they were helpless. On this day, the Heavenly Spirit Cat's eyes lit up, and its body flashed as it disappeared. It appeared at the edge of the Chu family's territory and crouched on the ground, waiting for the two people to approach. At the Great Qin Dynasty's imperial palace, Qin Qian frowned as she looked at Bai Xiaokong and Xin Yuanfeng and said, "You can't go to the Chu family's territory." Xin Yuanfeng was at the 9th level of the Emperor Realm, and he was the sword child of 9 Swords Mountain. His identity was not simple. "You little fox, you're as timid as ever. Who are we? What strength do we have now? The person you're afraid of is only at the Emperor Realm." Xin Yuanfeng looked at Qin Qian in disdain. Qin Qian was furious. She said angrily, "I'm not a little fox anymore. All right, you don't have to care about our matters anymore. Just wait for Big Brother to come back obediently." Xin Yuanfeng ignored her. "Humph." Qin Qian snorted coldly, but there was nothing she could do. Xin Yuanfeng had been one of Qin Ying's good friends back then. He had laid out a plan and used a secret technique to reincarnate. It was all for the sake of the Asura Ancient Land and his desire to fight alongside Qin Ying again. Back then, Qin Ying's few best friends were all like this. After completing their plan, they suffered heavy injuries and used their secret techniques and treasures to reincarnate and return. Bai Xiaokong was the same. It was just that he was the first to suffer heavy injuries and had almost died. He had been imbued with the foundation of the entire Bai Sheng Mountain sect. After being reincarnated, he went into seclusion to digest what he had received. Let's go meet the person Little Fox mentioned." Bai Xiaokong and Xin Yuanfeng left. Qin Qian was silent. She could not stop the two of them. She could only hope that Chu Zan would not be angered. Otherwise, the consequences would be unpredictable, and quite possibly terrible. Xin Yuanfeng and Bai Xiaokong walked at a steady pace towards the Chu family's territory. Third brother, back then, old Chu and the other two, in order to protect big brother, did they die? Bai Xiaokong asked. Because he had already suffered a heavy blow in early stages of the final plan, Bai Xingshan did not participate in the later stages of the Great War. Chu, he, Zhao, have all fallen. Xin Yuanfeng sighed and said. Then what about big brother? Bai Xiaokong said worriedly. Don't worry, big brother is a capable man. How could he make a mistake? I believe he will return very soon, Xin Yuanfeng patted his shoulder and said. He raised his head and looked at the Chu family's territory. He frowned and said, it's fine if that person is from the Chu family. If he's not, then we can't keep him around. Bai Xiaokong nodded. Both of them were at the 9th level of the Emperor realm. They were extremely powerful among those in the same realm. They disregarded the Chu family's strength altogether. When they were close to the Chu family's territory, they stumbled upon a cute cat squatting on the ground. Bai Xiaokong smiled and said, this cat looks pretty obedient. Why don't we capture it and give it to Little Fox? Don't give it to Little Fox. Sixth sister should like it too. Capture it and give it to her, Xin Yuanfeng said with a smile. He raised his hand and grabbed the cat. Suddenly, his shoulder sank down. A furry thing was suddenly squatting on his shoulder. His heart sank as well. Bai Xiaokong's heart sank as well. The moment Xin Yuanfeng made his move, the cat disappeared. Out of the corner of his eye, Bai Xiaokong saw a furry thing squatting on Xin Yuanfeng's shoulder. Boom! In an instant, their auras surged, wanting to suppress the heavenly spirit cat. Bam bam bam! Before their auras could fully erupt, they felt a soft little paw slapping their heads. The speed at which the paw moved was so fast that they could not keep track of the number of times they had been slapped in that instant. After it slapped Xin Yuanfeng, it slapped Bai Xiaokong again. Thud! Xin Yuanfeng and Bai Xiaokong fell to the ground. Their heads were swollen like pigs. Meow! The heavenly spirit cat squatted before the two of them and looked at them with its adorable eyes. Xin Yuanfeng was shocked. There was only a small gap left to see through in his swollen eyes. He was terrified when he saw the heavenly spirit cat's adorable appearance. What kind of cat was this? It was too terrifying. He, who was at the 9th level of the Emperor realm, did not have the strength to resist it. Bai Xiaokong was similarly shocked, and he regretted not listening to Qin Qian's words. The two of them fell to the ground. Their bodies were weak and unable to move. Their strength seemed to have vanished. The heavenly spirit cat raised a paw and extended it toward Xin Yuanfeng. The paw grew bigger and bigger, and it scared Xin Yuanfeng so much that his breathing stopped. It's over, it's over. Before he could even see his big brother, he was about to fall at the hands of this cat. Third brother, Bai Xiaokong could only watch helplessly as the cat's paw lifted Xin Yuanfeng up and sent him flying far away. Following that, the cat's paw extended towards him. Chapter 222, the big picture will be revealed. Pa! Bai Xiaokong fell beside Xin Yuanfeng and felt sore all over. He asked in a trembling voice, Third brother, how are you? I'm not dead yet. Ask Little Fox for help. Bai Xiaokong wanted to take out his communication talisman to ask for help. It's useless. Xin Yuanfeng stopped him. This cat was too terrifying. Its strength was far beyond the Emperor realm. It was useless to ask Qin Qian for help. The heavenly spirit cat squatted in front of the two of them again. It stretched out its claws again and hooked the two of them. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived at a mountain outside the Chu family's territory. It threw Xin Yuanfeng and Bai Xiaokong on the ground. The heavenly spirit cat's body transformed and it lay on a big rock lazily. With a wave of its small claws, a fan and a specially made comb were placed in front of Xin Yuanfeng and Bai Xiaokong. A ray of divine power shone down, and their injuries were instantly healed. All of their strength had returned. However, the two of them did not dare to make a move. Instead, they looked at the fan and the comb in shock. These two items were actually divine-grade supreme treasures. This, Xin Yuanfeng carefully opened his mouth. Pa! The heavenly spirit cat slapped him into the ground. Bai Xiaokong swallowed his saliva and smiled obsequiously. Lord Cat, are you asking us to brush your body? He was not a sword cultivator like Xin Yuanfeng, so his mind was a little more flexible. The cat raised its paw and rubbed his head, as if praising him for being teachable. Okay, Lord Cat. Bai Xiaokong immediately picked up the comb and started to brush the cat's body. The comb was very special. With every brush, wisps of lightning would appear and the cat's fur would become smoother and smoother. Xin Yuanfang got up and picked up the fan. He forced a smile on his face and said, "Lord Cat, I'll use the fan right now." Whoosh! As he waved the fan, a cool breeze enveloped the cat's body as if a gentle force was massaging it. It was a treasure. Xin Yuanfang stared at the fan in his hand with burning eyes. To the cat, the wind from the fan gently massaged it. However, the wind from this fan had the ability to destroy one's body and soul. Although it was a divine artifact, it was also very special. It did not take Xin Yuanfang much effort to use at all. Of course, he could not unleash its power. Pa! The cat slapped him to the ground again. Meow! It was dissatisfied that Xin Yuanfang did not put in any effort. Third brother, be more serious. Bai Xiaokong could not bear to see Xin Yuanfang continue to be beaten like this and reminded him. The cat took in 2 slaves and enjoyed its life every day. Chu Zan took a look and could not help but shake his head and laugh. He ignored the heavenly spirit cat's prank. Xin Yuanfang and Bai Xiaokong were very aggrieved. This cat did not let them leave, and their original plan to steal the divine artifacts fell through. They realized that they were going to become slaves to a cat. There was no news for 3 days. Qin Qian frowned. She was a little worried about Xin Yuanfang and Bai Xiaokong, but she did not dare to make a trip to the Chu family's territory. What if Chu Zan detained her? She took out her communication talisman and sent a message to Xin Yuanfang. She did not get a reply for a long time. Qin Qian became more and more worried. At this moment, something that worried her even more happened. The Emperor Realm experts of the Great Qian dynasty had attacked. The Emperor Realm experts of 9 Swords Mountain had already hurried over to the border of the Great Qin dynasty. The evil son of the evil imperial court had also arrived at the border of the Great Qin dynasty. Qin Qian could only head to the borders of the Great Qin dynasty and send another message to Xin Yuanfang and Bai Xiaokong. The Great Qin dynasty is in danger. At the borders of the Great Qin dynasty, several Emperor Realm cultivators stood in confrontation. One of them was an Emperor Realm cultivator from 9 Swords Mountain. The other was from the Great Qian dynasty. Or rather, he was from the Great Qian Palace of the Central Region. Neither side made a move. However, the Great Qian Palace cultivators did not retreat and maintained a high-pressure stance. News of the confrontation between the Great Qin dynasty and the Great Qian dynasty spread across the southern region. The various factions in the northern zone all watched silently. The various factions had been around for a long time, so they naturally knew some things about the ancient era. This was not the time to take sides. The evil imperial court watched from the side and did not have any intention of interfering. Everyone who witnessed this confrontation knew that although the quota competition had ended, the competition between the major forces was still ongoing. Everyone knew that the southern region was about to be engulfed in turmoil. One day, the southern region suddenly shook. A scene that was like a mirage appeared in a corner of the southern region. That place was vast and barren, and seemed to exude the aura of death. Asura ancient land. Looking at the huge ruin that appeared, the experts of the various large factions all had solemn expressions. The event that would change the date of the northern zone was about to arrive. The Asura ancient land had already started to materialize in a corner of the southern region. The day when it opened would not be far away. Chu Zan stood in the courtyard, looking in the direction of the Asura ancient land from a distance as he fiddled with the heavenly Tao talisman in his hand. The opportunity was almost here. At the same time, the 20-year milestone was also getting closer. Ren Chang had already arrived in the northern zone. Chu Zan asked him to enter the southern region and wait for instructions. Qin Ying had also embarked on his journey here. In this life, he carried the might of the human king's Luo family. He wanted to turn the tables and take revenge. Ding Yu, Xiao Liang, and the other disciples stood respectfully in front of Chu Zan. The Asura ancient land is about to open. This is an opportunity and also the beginning of a great change, Chu Zan said calmly. All the disciples, including Chu Yun, listened quietly. In the Asura ancient land, there are ancient treasures that are related to the fate of the 5 regions of the northern zone. Whoever obtains these treasures will have the chance to become the first human king of the northern zone. He Yu's eyes sparkled. The human king of the northern zone. The first human king. If she could become the human king, then the Ji family, the human king's family of the central region, would be nothing worth fearing. Chu Zan continued, this is a continuation of a plan from ancient times. It originated from a human divine realm expert who wanted to lure the demon race into invading the southern region. At the crucial moment, he would come out to turn the tide and thereby earn the human king's position. Back then, Great Qin's emperor, Qin Ying, who unified the southern region, and the various factions in the northern zone set up this scheme to foil his plan. As a result, it has continued to this day. All of you can participate in the competition for these treasures. The fate treasures must not fall into the hands of others. Chu Zan looked at Ding Yu and the others and said, the human king's position is not important. Moreover, the great changes are about to take place in the 9 zones. Not everyone is suitable for the human king's position, and not everyone who obtains a treasure will be able to become a human king. Ding Yu held his sword in his arms and said, Master, I don't care about the human king's position. I, Ding Yu, only have the sword in my heart. As long as my sword is strong enough, even a human king cannot stop me. If I don't like someone, I'll just kill them. Chu Zan looked at Ding Yu with appreciation. Although this fellow had been deceived, it had to be said that, in terms of sword Dao, very few people could persevere and dedicate themselves to the sword like he could. I am not a person who should be a king, Wang Luo chuckled. Xiao Liang pondered for a moment and shook his head. He did not pursue it. Everything was as it should be. Among the few of them, only He Yu had the persistent thought about the position of the human king. Chu Zan glanced at her and said, He Yu, don't let your perspective be restricted by the position of the human king. He Yu's heart trembled, and she suddenly came back to her senses. Compared to being in charge of the heavenly Tao talisman, the position of the human king was worthless. She almost lost herself. Thank you for the reminder, Master. Chapter 223. Chaotic Energy, Breaking Through to the Second Level of the Tao Realm. Chu Zan continued, Qin Ying has been reincarnated and is about to return. He is now my in-name disciple. I once promised him that no one above the Emperor realm would interfere in the fight for the fate treasures. You can be said to be the best among the Emperor realm experts. The fate treasures cannot fall into the hands of others. Ding Yu patted his chest and said, Don't worry, Master. The most precious fate treasure will definitely belong to us. Master, are you saying that we should help junior brother Qin Ying? Shang Xing asked. He has his own plan. Whether you help or not is up to you. The fight for the fate treasures is also up to you. Qin Ying's strength will not be weaker than yours. Chu Zan pondered for a moment, then said, You guys just have to do your own thing. Qin Ying has his own methods and backup plans. He may not need your help. He waved his hand and said, All of you go now. The southern region is about to be plunged into turmoil, so how can you all be absent? Yes, Master. His disciples bowed respectfully and left. 13th brother, I'll go and take a look too, Chu Yun said. Go ahead. Chu Zan nodded. Although Chu Yun was relatively weaker, she was still one of the stronger ones among the Emperor realm cultivators. Before Chu Yun left, she looked around the courtyard and shouted, Little White, come quickly. On a mountain peak outside the Chu family's territory, the heavenly spirit cat slapped Bai Xiaokong and Xin Yuanfang to the ground with its claws and stored away the comb and fan. Then, it disappeared from where it was in a flash. Bai Xiaokong and Xin Yuanfang lay on the ground and panted. When they saw that the comb and fan were gone, their hearts ached so much that they could not breathe. They had served the cat respectfully for such a long time. All they wanted were these divine artifacts. In the end, this cat did not even give them a chance. They had been cat slaves for so long in vain. Fortunately, this cat did not kill them. They had to run away quickly. Xin Yuanfang and Bai Xiaokong rushed off in a hurry. They would never dare to come again. There was something very wrong with the Chu family. Meow. The heavenly spirit cat instantly appeared in front of Chu Yun. It widened its eyes and looked very cute. Little White, let's go out and play, okay. Chu Yun happily picked it up. Meow. Chu Yun carried the cat and left. She was clearly aware of her own strength, and also knew that the heavenly spirit cat was not simple. With this cat around, what was there to be afraid of? Su Shaner stayed in the small courtyard. Aren't you going to watch the show? Chu Zan rubbed her head and said. I'll stay here to accompany you, sir. Su Shaner smiled sweetly and said. As you wish. The courtyard fell silent, and the pocket dimension felt empty for once. The disciples had all left, but Grandpa Zhang was still secretly protecting He Yu. The 20-year milestone had arrived. Chu Zan had been looking forward to this reward. You've been a shut-in for 20 years, and your heart is as stable as a mountain. You have been rewarded with a lump of chaotic energy. The reward came. A lump of chaotic energy. Chu Zan examined the reward. Chaotic energy which originated from primal chaos. It can evolve Tao principles, fuse Tao principles, temper Tao principles. Chu Zan was pleasantly surprised. It could evolve, fuse and temper Tao principles. The chaotic energy could accelerate the transformation of his Tao principles. In addition, these were only the most basic functions of chaotic energy. Chaotic energy had many more functions. It was a true treasure, especially for his indestructible chaos body. It had the miraculous effect of increasing his cultivation speed. Chu Zan received the reward. A fist-sized, hazy, chaotic, and indescribable ball of energy appeared in his hand. Chu Zan immediately absorbed the chaotic energy into his body. As soon as the chaotic energy entered his body, a rumbling sound rang out. The indestructible chaos body began to grow and become stronger. The speed at which he absorbed Tao aura increased rapidly. His Tao principles curled up and were absorbed by the chaotic energy. They actually fused into a small embryonic form of the great Tao. Furthermore, under the tempering of the chaotic energy, the Tao principles underwent a transformation and grew at a rapid speed. Chu Zan comprehended the changes brought about by the chaotic energy and the insights brought about by the fusion of the Tao principles into the embryonic form of the great Tao. The transformation of the Tao principles was a kind of sublimation. Chu Zan entered a wonderful state. The chaos bell in his soul started spinning, emitting a hazy brilliance, as holding the great Tao within it. As Chu Zan entered this state, the embryonic form of the great Tao began to solidify. Under the nourishment of the Tao aura, it grew rapidly. It gave birth to a completely new Tao principle, which was then absorbed by the chaotic energy. The strength Tao principle. 3 days later, Chu Zan awoke from his wondrous state. His cultivation had successfully broken through from the first level of the Tao realm to the second level of the Tao realm. His understanding of the great Tao had become even more profound. The chaotic energy spread throughout his body, and his Tao principles lingered within the chaotic energy. Sometimes they separated, and sometimes they fused. From now on, Chu Zan would be able to fuse and separate his Tao principles as he pleased. Furthermore, his cultivation speed had become even faster, and the speed at which his Tao principles transformed was more than 10 times faster than before. As expected of energy that had originated from primal chaos, Chu Zan silently pondered on his cultivation speed. Breaking through from the second level of the Tao realm to the third level of the Tao realm, given his current cultivation speed, and even with the help of the chaotic energy refining his Tao principles, would still take decades. For other Tao realm cultivators, breaking through one level in decades was extremely terrifying. However, Chu Zan was not satisfied with this. Decades were too long. Furthermore, this lump of chaotic energy was not something he had an endless supply of. Every time his Tao principles underwent a transformation, they would consume chaotic energy. Given the size of this lump of chaotic energy, Chu Zan reckoned that it would be completely used up after 3 to 5 transformations. In order to shorten the time needed for a breakthrough, apart from sufficient chaotic energy, the origin Tao crystal was still the most important thing. Only when the origin Tao crystal gained the ability to allow him to enter the great Tao would he be able to quickly break through the levels of the Tao realm and progress toward the Taoyuan realm. Chu Zan's gaze turned toward the origin Tao crystal. With the addition of new members and the increased activity level of the Great Tao Communication Group, the rate at which the origin Tao crystal was transforming had been accelerating. Still, it would still take quite some time before the transformation was complete. Therefore, if he wanted to further accelerate the transformation of the origin Tao crystal and increase his cultivation level, he still had to rely on triggering the system's rewards. The opening of the Asura ancient land would most likely provide him with many opportunities to do this. In addition, the integration of the heavenly Tao talisman's laws into the southern region's laws of heaven and earth, and the subsequent encroachment over them, would also be a key opportunity to trigger the system reward. Chu Zan was silently devising and planning all this in his mind. It was also very necessary to increase the number of Taoyuan realm experts in the Great Tao Communication Group. As long as there were enough Taoyuan realm experts, he could open a second group that consisted of only Taoyuan realm experts, which would allow them to exchange their experiences and insights with each other. For Taoyuan realm experts, the chance to share and exchange knowledge and insights was invaluable. After all, there were too few Taoyuan realm cultivators. Even the Chaos Tao Mirror found it difficult to locate Taoyuan realm cultivators. Chu Zan pondered over all sorts of methods that could trigger the system's rewards, so that he could accelerate the transformation of the origin Tao crystal. He felt that it was necessary for him to take in a few more disciples. Only in this way could he increase the chances of triggering the system's rewards. Moreover, these disciples had to be spread throughout the 9 zones. Chapter 224, V****Sao, Don't Be Impudent. After breaking through, Chuzan placed more attention on the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan while keeping an eye on the Asura ancient land. The southern region's laws of heaven and earth were recovering faster and faster, and the Asura ancient land would soon fully open. However, at the borders of the Great Qin dynasty, there were changes. The standoff between the two sides continued for some time, until the arrival of the Great Qian Palace's holy son. "Where's Qin Ying?" Qin Qian jumped up and headed to the borders. She looked at the Great Qian Palace's holy son and frowned as she asked, "Who are you?" "You're the Great Qin Empress. Tell Qin Ying to get out here. You don't have the right to see him. How dare you speak to me like that?" Boom! Qin Qian waved her hand to block the punch, and a 9-tailed illusory figure appeared behind her. Pooh! However, she could not block it at all and was instantly sent flying back. "Tell Qin Ying to get out here. I, Cao Tianyi, am here now. It's time for us to settle the score for his obstruction of my path." Cao Tianyi, the holy son of the Great Qian Palace, appeared. He had heavily injured Qin Qian with one punch. The expressions of the Emperor Realm cultivators of 9 Swords Mountain changed. "Let's see how strong the Great Qian Holy Son is." Sword Chi flashed as the Emperor Realm cultivators of 9 Swords Mountain attacked Cao Tianyi at the same time. HMPH. Cao Tianyi grunted coldly and punched out. A huge illusory shadow appeared behind him and charged toward the 9 Swords Mountain cultivators. Boom! The punch shattered their sword chi and sent them flying. In the blink of an eye, the 9 Swords Mountain Emperor Realm cultivators were all sent flying. 2 of them had their bodies shattered, and their souls were heavily injured. They had luckily escaped with their lives. "Qin Ying, are you dead or deaf? Come out, or I'll destroy the Great Qin and 9 Swords Mountain." Cao Tianyi's power was unparalleled. The experts from the various factions were all shocked. He was too powerful. Some of the older generation experts who knew the inside story had grim expressions on their faces as they looked in the direction of the Great Qian Palace and frowned. The rumors were true. That person had reincarnated. Furthermore, he had come from the Great Qian Palace. The Great Qian Palace was not just the #1 faction in the central region. It was also the #1 faction in the northern zone and had the longest history. Qin Ying, the #1 genius of the northern zone, had great talent and a great mind for strategy, and he had unified the southern region. He also wanted to unify the northern zone and become the human king. However, because of Cao Tianyi, a war broke out, and Qin Ying had disappeared without a trace. All of his followers had used all sorts of secret techniques to reincarnate. It was rumored that the Asura ancient land had been set up by Qin Ying. It had blocked Cao Tianyi's path. Not far away, the evil son looked at the incredibly powerful Cao Tianyi and frowned slightly. At the same time, he looked forward to the appearance of the rumored Great Qin Emperor. "Haha, Qin Ying, after all your schemes, you've finally fallen." Cao Tianyi had not seen Qin Ying for a long time, and he immediately laughed maniacally. "Since you're dead, there's no need for the Great Qin to exist anymore." Boom! He rushed out and attacked again, disintegrating a 9 Swords Mountain Emperor Realm cultivator with a single punch. Countless Emperor Realm cultivators had fallen. "Impudent!" A voice rang out as the aura of a Heaven Realm expert burst forth, and sword chi flashed in the sky. However, a light laugh sounded out from the direction of the Great Qian Palace. "Why do we have to interfere in a battle between juniors? Should we start our fight ahead of time?" Cao Tianyi did not slow down and once again killed another Emperor Realm cultivator from 9 Swords Mountain with one punch. Then, he raised his hand and made a grabbing gesture. His spiritual power condensed into a huge hand and tried to grab Qin Qian, who was already severely injured. Qin Qian's face was pale. She felt a little desperate. Why had the Supreme Emperor not returned? Could it be that an accident had really happened? "Be-starred Cao, don't be impudent." A furious roar came and sword chi flashed through the sky. Boom! The giant's spiritual hand shattered. The sword chi did not stop and, like a bolt of lightning, it stabbed toward Cao Tianyi. "Xin Yuanfang, it's the sword child of 9 Swords Mountain, Xin Yuanfang." Amongst the spectators, someone shouted. Xin Yuanfang, the current sword child of 9 Swords Mountain, was a peerless genius. The older Heaven Realm experts' eyes turned serious. They knew that Xin Yuanfang was extraordinary, and that he was a good friend of the Great Qin Emperor. He was known as the #1 sword Dao genius of the Northern Zone. However, Cao Tianyi was, after all, the reincarnation of that legendary person. Would Qin Yuanfang be a match for him? Even if Qin Ying returned, he might prevail over Cao Tianyi. After all, back then, Qin Ying had not even reached the divine realm. Some factions were already thinking about how to side with Cao Tianyi and what preparations they needed to make in the fight for the Fate treasures. The situation in the northern zone had already begun to boil. Qin Yuanfang, the #1 sword Dao genius of the northern zone back then. Cao Tianyi laughed coldly, he clenched his hands, and small sabers floated out and danced around him. His entire body emitted a golden light, and his fists actually exuded a sharp aura. A great battle instantly erupted. Rumble, Qin Yuanfang was indeed worthy of being the current sword child of the Nine Swords Mountain. He was the #1 sword Dao genius of the northern zone back then. He directly blocked Cao Tianyi's attack. However, very soon, someone noticed that Qin Yuanfang was at a disadvantage. Cao Tianyi's golden light seemed to be the condensation of domain power. Was it a domain-related secret technique? Furthermore, the small sabers he controlled were like a tornado that enshrouded Qin Yuanfang and trapped him. Each of the small sabers contained power equivalent to a full-force attack from a 9th-level Emperor Realm Cultivator. In addition, there were more than 100 of these small sabers. Qin Yuanfang was being attacked by hundreds of 9th-level Emperor Realm Cultivators at the same time, though these were only equivalent to ordinary 9th-level Emperor Realm Cultivators. Still, there was strength in numbers. Qin Yuanfang was unable to break out of the saber encirclement. Some of the older experts revealed a shocked expression. They recognized this extremely powerful offensive divine technique, the god-slaying saber aura, which was rumored to be from the Great Qian Palace. It was rumored that a divine realm expert had fallen under this divine technique in the ancient times. Boom! Cao Tianyi's golden fist strike smashed forward, aiding the god-slaying saber aura. Qin Yuanfang resisted the attacks, but he was injured by the saber aura when he blocked the fist strike. His body was covered in blood. It was as if he had been slashed more than 100 times in an instant. B-starred Cao. A furious roar sounded. Bai Xiaokong's battle intent surged as he threw a punch. Bai Sheng Divine Fist. HMPH. Cao Tianyi's fist met Bai Xiaokong's, but Bai Xiaokong did not retreat. Instead, his battle intent surged as he punched out again. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, Bai Xiaokong was enveloped by his battle intent, and his powerful aura swept out as he attacked Cao Tianyi repeatedly. It's Bai Xiaokong, an old expert said in a deep voice. You know him? Someone asked. How could I not know him? He's the young sect master of Bai Sheng Mountain, the strongest heavens blessed from back then. What a pity. Some of the older martial artists turned silent. They did not have the right to participate in the Great War back then. They had only heard about it. 100,000 years had passed. It was so long ago that some of their memories were blurry. They were all people who were about to die. For the sake of the Asura ancient land, they had fallen into deep sleep and survived until today. This was to witness once again the battle between the peerless characters from back then. Cao Tianyi was indeed worthy of being the reincarnation of that rumored person. The god-slaying saber aura had trapped and wounded Qin Yuanfang. He was fighting head-on with Bai Xiaokong. He was fighting against two heavens blessed by himself and was not at a disadvantage at all. Chapter 225. The Powerful Cao Tianyi. Bai Sheng Divine Fist. Cao Tianyi sneered and said, even Bai Sheng himself was not my match, much less you. Today, I'll show you my Great Qian Palace's god-slaying golden fist. Boom! A golden fist suddenly condensed and shot toward Bai Xiaokong. It was not actually a technique, it was just a powerful fist attack. Boom! 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 After just a dozen punches, Bai Xiaokong was already vomiting blood. His battle intent was on the verge of collapsing, and he staggered backwards. Everyone was shocked. Too powerful. Cao Tianyi fought alone against Qin Yuanfang and Bai Xiaokong, yet he still had the upper hand and defeated Bai Xiaokong, while Qin Yuanfang was already dripping with blood and was about to be defeated. The evil son, who was not too far away, had a serious expression on his face. Cao Tianyi was a formidable opponent. He believed that even though it was 1 against 2, Cao Tianyi still had not used his full strength. Qin Ying, if you don't come out now, I'm going to kill these two brothers of yours. Cao Tianyi looked around. Everyone was waiting for the rumored Great Qin Emperor to appear. However, no one came out even after they waited a long time. Haha, Qin Ying, could it be that you've really fallen? Cao Tianyi laughed wildly. Since that's the case, I'll send your brothers to reunite with you in hell. Boom! The incoming fist was scorching hot, and it smashed by Shao Kang's battle intent into smithereens, causing him to cough out blood and fly backwards. The god-slaying saber aura suddenly burst forth with even greater strength, sweeping towards Xin Yuanfang. The experts of Nine Swords Mountain wanted to come and save him, but the experts of the Great Qian Palace did not allow them to. Scoundrel Cao, die! A figure suddenly arrived, and specks of starlight scattered across the sky. In an instant, the starlight turned into a surging wave. Booming sounds continued to ring out. This is. Many of the older martial artists revealed surprised expressions. It's the Star Ocean divine technique of the Star Ocean sect. Wasn't the Star Ocean sect destroyed in the Great War? It's Pang Xinghai, the former sect master of the Star Ocean sect. He was the youngest and most talented sect master in the history of the Star Ocean sect. Not long ago in the southern region, the dilapidated ancient ruin that had appeared was the site of the Star Ocean sect from back then. The Star Ocean waves crashed toward Cao Tianyi's god-slaying golden fist. Boom! The starlight dimmed a bit and then exploded forth again, rolling like waves and protecting by Shao Kang behind it. A burly figure stood atop the waves, and then charged toward Cao Tianyi. Pang Xinghai, your Star Ocean sect has been destroyed, why are you still alive? Today, I'll send you on your way. Cao Tianyi was not afraid at all, and flew up to meet him. 1 against 3, second brother, third brother, I'm coming. A new figure holding a large machete appeared, riding an Emperor Realm demonic beast, and directly charged toward Cao Tianyi. Haha, good timing. I, Cao Tianyi, will send all of you to reunite with Qin Ying today. Cao Tianyi was not afraid at all as he condensed another fist strike and charged toward the newcomer. He's the young master of the Kashan Alliance, Peng Qiguang. Many people recognize the man riding the demonic beast. Amongst the older martial artists, someone said in a low voice, Peng Qiguang is the genius itinerant cultivator from back then. Who would have thought that even he didn't die? Qin Ying is indeed worthy of being the #1 genius of the northern zone back then. Many of the older martial artists nodded. The great Qin Emperor was indeed extraordinary. He had devised a scheme to foil the plans of a divine realm expert, yet his brothers had not died and were successfully reincarnated. However, what about himself? He would not die, right? It was hard to say. After all, Cao Tianyi hated him the most. It was inevitable that he would have targeted him first back then. He might not have had the chance to escape and be reincarnated. The older martial artists gathered together and observed the constantly changing situation. Their gazes were serious, and no one knew what they were thinking. They had been slumbering until now to prolong their lives until the opening of the Asura ancient land. Naturally, they had a purpose, and they had reached a tacit understanding. Cao Tianyi was fighting against 4 by himself, but was still not at a disadvantage. Although Bai Shaokong and Xin Yuanfang's strength had been greatly reduced, it did not detract from the fact that Cao Tianyi was powerful. Many Emperor Realm martial artists were silent. The gap between them and him was too big. Even in comparison to Xin Yuanfang and the other top geniuses, they were already quite far behind. In the end, Cao Tianyi was a mountain that they could not climb. Perhaps only the 2 who fought against the 100 Emperor Realm experts alone could fight Cao Tianyi. Many people had this thought. However, looking at the incomparably powerful Cao Tianyi, they all felt that even the sword and spear experts that fought against the 100 Emperor Realm experts alone could not compare. Amidst the crowd not far away, Ding Yu and the others watched the battle. Very strong. Xiao Liang narrowed his eyes. Indeed, very strong. Ding Yu nodded solemnly. Wang Luo said helplessly, I can't beat him, but he can't hurt me either. Even though he could not beat him, Wang Luo could use formation pills, restrictions pills, and other special pills to entrap him and retreat. Shang Xing chuckled, holding a soul puppet in his hand, and said, in terms of actual strength, I'm not as good as him, but then again, I have this puppet. Ding Yu and Xiao Liang cursed inwardly. The 2 of them relied entirely on their own strength, whereas Wang Luo and Shang Xing did not. Shang Xing, in particular, had already refined a Heaven Realm soul puppet that could unleash powerful attacks. Although it was weak compared to other Heaven Realm experts, he was absolutely invincible in the Emperor Realm with it, and perhaps even the Supreme Realm. Unless of course, before he used the puppet, he was severely injured or even killed. However, Shang Xing was not weak either. It was almost impossible to kill him instantly. There was no expression on Heiyu's face. Due to force of habit, it was very difficult for her to show any emotion on her face. She looked at the battle in the distance and secretly estimated her own strength. With the power of the heavenly Tao scripture, it would not be a problem for her to marginally suppress Cao Tianyi with her full strength. Chu Yun hugged the heavenly spirit cat and watched the battle between Cao Tianyi and the others. She sighed emotionally. They were too powerful. She knew that she was also an Emperor Realm expert, but when she compared herself with them, she realized that the gap between them was too big. Qin Ying, are you still not coming out? Could it be that you have really fallen? Cao Tianyi shouted loudly as he scanned the surroundings while fighting. A young man walked out with a sword in hand. He walked towards Cao Tianyi step by step. With each step, his aura grew stronger, and his sword intent began to rise. It's Yu Beilong. What is he doing? Many warriors were shocked. The current leader of the Yu family, the peerless genius, Yu Beilong. Cao Tianyi swept his gaze over and sneered, Yu Beilong, you didn't die either. He was so angry that he laughed. Good, good, Qin Ying. Well done, none of your brothers died, right? Yu Beilong, since you have appeared here, I, Cao Tianyi, will definitely destroy your Yu family. Yu Beilong did not say anything. He walked forward step by step. His sword intent continued to condense, and the sword in his hand was emitting a bright light. However, at this moment, a figure appeared and blocked him. You want to stop me? Yu Beilong looked coldly at Ling Beiyun. Your Yu family has made a choice. My Ling family will naturally respond. Yu Beilong, this path is impassable. Ling Beiyun sneered. Since that's the case, let's see what the #1 genius of the eastern region is capable of. Yu Beilong attacked angrily. Ling Beiyun did not back down at all. The battle erupted, and both of them fought like madmen. Chapter 226. Appearing one after another. Many of the onlookers were shocked. Ling Beiyun actually came out to stop Yu Beilong. Were the Yu and Ling families not in-laws? Oh right, recently, there have been rumors that Yu Beibei, the daughter of the Yu family, fell in love with someone else, and that the Yu family intends to break the marriage agreement, so. Was it with that abandoned child of the Ji family? Yes, I've heard about it too. The surrounding cultivators were enlightened. It was no wonder Ling Beiyun was so angry. Given his pride, he felt that he was the only one qualified to reject others and break off the engagement. How could he bear to have someone else break up with him? Moreover, during the engagement period, his fiancée had fallen in love with someone else. This was equivalent to slapping him on the face. Yu Beilong was blocked by Ling Beiyun, while Cao Tianyi fought against the other 4 people by himself. Bai Xiaokong's injuries were not light, and Xin Yuanfeng was also wounded. However, Pang Xinghai and Peng Qiguang were both powerful Emperor Realm experts. They were able to block Cao Tianyi together. However, the people from the Great Qian Palace with Cao Tianyi, apart from Ling Beiyun, had not made a move yet. The situation was not looking good for the Great Qin dynasty. Many factions were watching and waiting for Qin Ying to appear. If Qin Ying had really died, it would be impossible for Xin Yuanfeng and the others to gain the upper hand in the Asura ancient land. Haha, the southern region is so lively. At this moment, a group of people walked over. The leader was a young man with a black flower mark on his forehead. He looked evil and held a half-moon blade in his hand. All of the experts of the northern zone turned serious. This person was from another zone. Moreover, given the aura around his body, some knowledgeable experts immediately thought of a particular faction, and their facial expressions turned very ugly. Western Zone's northern region, Heavenly Saint Sect. Humph. Several old warriors snorted coldly. What, am I not welcome here? Mo Hongliu coldly glanced at the cultivators present. The evil son narrowed his eyes and sneered at Mo Hongliu. I was wondering who it was. It turns out it's AB** starred from the Heavenly Saint Sect. You're courting death. Mo Hongliu's face instantly darkened. The evil son was not afraid at all. He waved the folding fan in his hand and sneered. It's common knowledge that the Heavenly Saint Sect members are a hybrid of the human race and the Heavenly Demon race. If you guys are not B** stards, then what are you? Die. Mo Hongliu moved and turned into a black shadow. He arrived in front of the evil son instantly. The half-moon blade in his hand turned into a circle of light and swept toward the evil son's neck. Swoosh. The evil son opened his folding fan and welcomed the attack fearlessly. A great battle broke out. The battle between the evil son and Mo Hongliu was much more intense than the one between Cao Tianyi and the others. Countless Emperor Realm cultivators could not withstand the shockwaves and retreated frantically. The Heaven Realm experts of the major forces all had solemn expressions on their faces. They looked at the Great Evil Palace and the Heavenly Saint Sect. These two were forces from beyond the northern zone. However, they were extremely powerful, and the major forces of the northern zone were not united. Naturally, they could not expel them from the northern zone. Once the battle between Mo Hongliu and the evil sun started, Cao Tianyi stopped. His figure flashed and he returned to the Great Qian Palace's camp. He squinted his eyes and watched the battle in the distance. Yu Beilong and Ling Beiyun also stopped. Chu Zan watched the scene through the heaven-spying mirror and narrowed his eyes. The Divine Realm Demon Elder had appeared. Mo Hongliu, Western Zone's Northern Region's Heavenly Saint Sect. A human faction with the bloodline of the Heavenly Demons. They were of mixed blood. Mo Hongliu clearly knew that, as a pure-blooded Heavenly Demon, he would not be able to participate in the fight for the Faith Treasures. Therefore, he reincarnated to the northern region of the Western Zone and became the Holy Son of the Heavenly Saint Sect. So powerful, Su Shaner exclaimed. Cao Tianyi, the Evil Sun, and Mo Hongliu were all extremely powerful, far surpassing ordinary Emperor Realm experts. Xin Yuanfeng and the others were already very powerful, but Cao Tianyi and the other two were a step above them. They're not normal people, and their strength can't be considered normal. Chu Zan smiled. The Evil Sun was also a reincarnation of a Divine Realm expert, but he was different from Cao Tianyi and the others. He was a reincarnation of a Divine Realm expert's divine soul. The other party had cut off a part of his soul and reincarnated. He wanted to reincarnate and obtain a supreme treasure to become stronger. Then, he would fuse his reincarnated body with his original body and break through to a higher realm. What a daring plan! Chu Zan tapped on the heaven-spying mirror and a few figures hidden in the skies appeared. They are? Su Shaner asked in surprise. These people were obviously peerless experts. One of them was Heiyu's grandpa Zhang. His figure was hidden not far from Heiyu. The other few were from the Great Qian Palace, Heavenly Saint Sect, and Nine Swords Mountain. Chu Zan stretched out his hand and pointed again. At the border of the southern region, a few more figures appeared. Ha! The Divine Realm experts that usually hide themselves are all out now. Chu Zan would never believe that Divine Realm experts were not involved in this matter. After all, these were fate treasures that involved one zone and 5 regions. From the current situation, Qin Ying's side was at a disadvantage. Of course, the other forces in the northern zone might be more biased toward Qin Ying. After all, they were dissatisfied with Cao Tianyi for inviting the demon race to invade and scheming for the position of the human king. Those few old warriors who were on their last breaths were probably trying to stop the fate treasures from falling into the hands of the demon race. They also did not want Cao Tianyi to get his hands on them. Because he had an evil heart. He had schemed to harm the human race. Chu Zan sat in the courtyard and watched the battle at the border of the Great Qin dynasty. He brewed a pot of tea and ate some pastries, looking very satisfied. Su Shaner sat by his side and watched with great interest. The Evil Sun and Mo Hongliu were still fighting. No one had won or lost. In fact, each of them had held back. It was not time for them to give it their all. Ding Yu and Xiao Liang looked at the two people fighting inside. There were actually such powerful Emperor Realm experts aside from themselves. Do you think our junior brother Qin Ying is their opponent? Ding Yu asked with a doubtful expression. That's hard to say. Xiao Liang shook his head. As far as I know, even when Qin Ying was at his peak, he had not reached the divine realm. Even if Master took him as an in-name disciple, I'm afraid that he might not be as strong as theirs, Heiyu said. She was in charge of the Black Moon Tower and came from the central region of the Central Zone, so she naturally knew more secrets. Should we lend a hand? Shang Xing asked. It depends. Anyway, the faith treasures must belong to us. We can't allow them to fall into the hands of others. Ding Yu stroked the sword in his hand and said, Master must have some use for those faith treasures. Heiyu nodded slightly, deep in thought. Do you guys think there are any divine realm experts? Wang Luo looked around and asked. Isn't Senior Zhang there? Ding Yu looked in the direction of Grandpa Zhang and smiled. Whether there are divine realm experts or not, it doesn't affect us. Don't forget what Master said. Those above the Emperor realm are not allowed to participate. Shang Xing tapped the soul puppet he was holding and chuckled, with my soul puppet, who can compete with me? Ding Yu and the others were speechless. Shang Xing's puppet could indeed crush any Emperor realm expert. Chapter 227, Where is my Invincible Supreme Emperor? The battle between the Evil Sun and Mo Hongliu came to an end, and no one had come out on top. Before Cao Tianyi left, he left a message. I will return here in 3 days. If Qin Ying is not here, then there is no need for the Great Qin dynasty to exist anymore. Xin Yuanfeng and the others' faces were extremely gloomy. At the same time, their eyes were filled with worry. Could something have really happened to Big Brother? Inside the Great Qin Royal Palace, Qin Qian was heavily injured. Her face was incredibly pale and she was currently being treated for her injuries. Xin Yuanfang and Bai Xiaokong had also returned to treat their injuries. If Qin Ying did not return in 3 days, there would be a fierce battle. The Nine Swords Mountain sect master and the other higher-ups all had gloomy and worried expressions. Could something have really happened to Qin Ying? Without him as their backbone, how could they go up against Cao Tianyi? He was the one who had devised this scheme back then. How could Cao Tianyi let them go? The grudge he held for having his plan foiled was too great. The great Qin Emperor won't let us down. Within Nine Swords Mountain, a very old elder spoke up. If something really happens, my old friends will join forces with us. No matter what, we can't let that scoundrel Cao Tianyi obtain the Fate Treasures, especially the southern region's Fate Treasure. Pang Xinghai and Peng Qiguang were silent. After a long while, Peng Qiguang said, the Kashan Alliance will make a move. The sect master of Nine Swords Mountain asked, who was the traitor back then? Pang Xinghai gritted his teeth and said, there were only so many people who participated in the plan back then. Most of them are already dead. Apart from us, the others who came into contact with the core secrets of the plan have all died. Those who didn't die are the traitors who leaked the news back then. Peng Qiguang said hatefully, if the traitors didn't leak the news, how could we have ended up like this? Back then, Cao Tianyi was a divine realm expert. After Qin Ying learned of his dastardly plan, he began to make his own plan to stop the other party. The fate of the human race was not something Cao Tianyi, a divine realm expert, should toy with. However, the plan was leaked, and they had no choice but to risk it all. In the end, they were all reincarnated. The Nine Swords Mountain sect master said solemnly, the sword master has already returned. Why don't we ask him to personally kill Cao Tianyi? A figure suddenly appeared. He was tall and slender, and his face was thin and bony. Not a single trace of aura leaked from his body. That old ghost from the Great Qian Palace has also returned. There are still a few others at the same realm. I can't make a move. We pay our respects to the Sword Master. Everyone bowed. He was one of the founding fathers of the Nine Swords Mountain. Before this peerless divine realm expert had been living in seclusion in the desolate ancient zone. He had returned to the northern zone because of the opening of the Asura ancient land. Back then, the divine realm experts were no longer active in the 8 zones. All of them had gone to the desolate ancient zone for some unknown reason. Only Cao Tianyi had quietly returned, intending to plot for the position of the human king of the northern zone. This resulted in this current series of events. I hope Qin Ying is safe. The Nine Swords Mountain sword master sighed and disappeared. The divine realm could faintly sense that something was changing in the 9 zones, which was why they started to leave the desolate ancient zone. 3 days later, Cao Tianyi attacked again. Xin Yuanfang and the others had to fight. This time, Cao Tianyi did not attack alone. There was also an Emperor Realm expert from the Great Qian Palace. Bai Xiaokong and the Emperor Realm expert from the Great Qian Palace fought. Xin Yuanfang and the other 2 joined forces to fight Cao Tianyi and barely managed to fight him to a standstill. However, they were forced into a state where they were passively defending. Haha, I'll come back in another 3 days. If Qin Ying doesn't appear, we'll have to discuss whether or not you guys have the qualifications to enter the Asura ancient land. Cao Tianyi laughed maniacally and left. Xin Yuanfang and the others felt helpless. Before this, they had all felt that they could take charge of things on their own. Even if they were not a match for Qin Ying, they were by no means weak. However, reality was cruel. Without Qin Ying as their backbone, they could not even put up a proper fight against their enemies. The 4 of them stood guard at the border and did not return to the Great Qin dynasty's capital. Inside the Great Qin royal palace, Qin Qian was seated cross-legged on her bed. Her face was pale, and she had not fully recovered from her injuries. She muttered to herself, Master, where are you? Why haven't you returned? If Qin Ying did not return, how could she continue fighting with Cao Tianyi's forces? Suddenly, the door opened. A beautiful figure walked in. Qin Qian looked up and was immediately shocked. The person who came had a peerlessly beautiful face and exuded a heroic aura. She also had the natural aura of an emperor and supreme. Compared to this person, Qin Qian felt that she, the Great Qin Empress, was a joke. This person was qualified to be the real Great Qin Empress. Suddenly, she stood up in shock, and a 9-tailed shadow appeared behind her. Who are you, little fox? You've grown up. Qin Ying sighed as she stretched out her white hand and stroked Qin Qian's head. Boom! Qin Qian was completely dumbfounded, and her mind started to spin. Emperor, Master, it's you. She started to stutter as she spoke. Where did my incredibly powerful great Qin Emperor go? Where did my incredibly domineering and unrivaled master go? Even though this sister in front of her looked incredibly magnificent and valiant, she was still a peerless beauty. She was not her incredibly powerful great Qin Emperor. Emperor, is that you? You? Qin Qian was dumbstruck and looked at him in disbelief. Qin Ying narrowed his eyes in pain and said, it's me. Wah! Qin Qian cried. She threw herself into Qin Ying's arms and cried bitterly, Emperor, you have to avenge me. As soon as she threw herself into Qin Ying's arms, Qin Qian was distraught. Where was my sturdy and broad emperor's chest? Why is it so soft and bouncy? It's over. My mighty emperor is gone. Emperor, master, why would you? Qin Qian reached out and pressed her head on Qin Ying's chest. She still could not believe that the peerless beauty in front of her was her own emperor. Qin Ying stroked her head and let out a long sigh. Fate toys with people, he did not even dare to face his own descendants now. Then, should I call you Supreme Sister from now on? Qin Qian raised her head and blinked her eyes. No. Qin Ying gritted his teeth and smacked her head, saying, you are now one of my descendants. How can you call me sister? Continue to call me master. All right, master. Qin Qian leaned against Qin Ying's chest and looked at her own. She was instantly ashamed. She could not compare. Qin Ying glared at her fiercely and said angrily, don't mess around. Qin Qian calmed down. Her complicated, excited, and indescribable feelings faded somewhat as she said, Supreme Emperor, Master, Big Brother Xin Yuanfeng and the others can't stop that scoundrel Cao Tianyi. Aren't you going to show yourself? Qin Ying had a painful and complicated look on his face. He really did not want to appear in front of his former brothers. Now, he was a woman. How could he face his former brothers? How depressing. Gritting his teeth, he said, it's all because of that B*****starred Cao. Rubbing Qin Qian's head, he instructed, don't leak the news of my return. Don't tell anyone. If possible, I'll do it in secret. Yes, master. I understand. I won't tell anyone. As he said that, she pressed her hand against Qin Ying's chest. Comparing herself again, she sighed in her heart. As expected of her emperor. She was bigger than her even as a woman. Chapter 228. The low-key Qin Ying. Qin Ying's face darkened as she grabbed Qin Qian's hand. Qin Qian briefed Qin Ying about the current situation in the southern region and the northern zone. At the same time, she passed a news talisman to Qin Ying, from which she would be able to obtain important information about the entire northern zone. Finally, she asked with a questioning tone, Master, has Chu Zun died? Yes. Qin Ying looked at her and asked, why do you ask? Qin Qian hesitated, but she still told her about Chu Zun. He is very powerful. I suspect that Chu Zun is also involved. Qin Ying frowned and said, Chu, he, and Zhao sacrificed their lives and souls back then to block a strike from Cao Tianyi for me. They are completely dead. It cannot be him. I'll go see him. I hope that it isn't one of Cao Tianyi's schemes. Qin Qian hurriedly said, Xin Yuanfeng and Bai Xiaokong went there, but we don't know what happened. They didn't want to talk about it, so they probably suffered quite a bit. Don't worry, I know what to do. Qin Ying left the Great Qin Royal Palace and headed towards Chu County. Chu Zan looked at Xin Yuanfeng and the others, who had been beaten into a sorry state. He clicked his tongue and shook his head. Qin Ying's brothers were not bad. However, Cao Tianyi was, after all, a reincarnated divine realm. Whether it was in terms of background or talent, he far surpassed them. Moreover, Cao Tianyi's past was not as simple as an ordinary divine realm expert. Within the divine realm, he was also considered a peerless expert. He raised his head and looked outside the Chu family's territory. Qin Ying had come. He did not want to see Qin Ying now. If he was asked about a way to turn back into a man, how could he trick him? He needed to maintain his mysterious and unfathomable persona until the battle for the Asura ancient land ended. Qin Ying had not returned alone either. There were 5 elders at the peak of the heaven realm, 2 half-step divine realm elders, and a divine realm ancestor who secretly accompanied him. It could be seen from this that the human king's Luo family had a deep foundation. Moreover, the sudden appearance of divine realm experts and their departure from the desolate ancient zone probably was not solely due to the Asura ancient land. Chu Zan could not help but recall what Hong Yuanchu had said. The end of this Daoyuan was approaching. Perhaps it had something to do with this. Otherwise, why would the divine realm experts hiding in the desolate ancient zone suddenly become active? Chu Yi, go and send them away. Yes, my lord. Chu Yi's figure flashed and disappeared from the small courtyard. Qin Ying was heading toward the Chu family's territory when a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his way. The Luo family elders who were secretly protecting him all appeared and looked at Chu Yi with serious expressions. Where did this person come from? They had not even noticed. This place has something to do with our lord. Don't disturb him, Chu Yi looked at Qin Ying and said. Qin Ying frowned and asked hesitantly, your lord is, could it be? That's right, Chu Yi nodded and said, since our lord has given you a promise, he will keep it. I also want to remind you that our lord has other disciples in the southern region. After saying this, he disappeared. Qin Ying turned around and returned to the Great Qin Royal Palace. The Luo family's elders had a confused expression on their faces. Who was that mysterious person? The divine realm ancestor of the Luo family did not leave. Instead, he stood in the air above the Chu family and overlooked the entire Chu family's territory. In his eyes, the Chu family was too weak. In the eastern zone, they would barely qualify as a small family. The higher-ups of the Luo family already knew of Qin Ying's identity. Even though he was a reincarnated person, he still possessed the Luo family's bloodline and was a direct descendant of the Luo family. Moreover, he had some connections with the Luo family's human king. No matter what the reason was, the Luo family would definitely support him. As for whether or not he could become the human king of the northern zone was another matter altogether. The temptation of the fate treasure of the northern zone alone was enough for them to consider Qin Ying as a future pillar of the Luo family. Back then, the great Qin emperor had been a peerless figure in the northern zone. Once he rose to prominence, he would be able to ensure the Luo family's continued glory, and might even help them to rise to even greater heights. Also, Qin Ying had a mysterious master. Luo Ming looked down at the Chu family's territory and did not rashly enter. He had not noticed that person's appearance earlier, which meant that the person was much stronger than him. The entire Chu family's territory was within his vision, yet he could not see anything strange. Where exactly was that person? He kept feeling that he was missing something. He could clearly see everything, but there was that nagging feeling that something was off. Chu Zan did not pay attention to Luo Ming. He could do whatever he wanted. He was merely at the 5th level of the divine realm. Chu Yi, Chu Er, the left and right Buddha attendants, or even the Buddha Nanwu could all easily suppress him. Now, the divine realm was no longer anything special in Chu Zan's eyes. The Asura ancient land was about to open. Chu Zan had to focus on the heavenly Tao talisman plan. Enduring the pain, he separated a little bit of chaotic energy from his body and injected it into the heavenly Tao talisman to upgrade it. As the number of Tao principles increased, as well as when they evolved, they had to be refined into the heavenly Tao talisman again. Qin Ying returned quietly. He did not meet his brothers. He probably did not know how to face his old brothers. In the eyes of his old brothers, their incredibly powerful big brother had become a peerless beauty. It was simply inconceivable. Qin Ying was unable to overcome this hurdle in his heart. Xin Yuanfeng and the other brothers were stationed at Great Qin dynasty's borders, and their days were truly difficult. Cao Tianyi would attack them from time to time. Later on, the evil sun also attacked a few times. Mo Hongliu also attacked twice. Each time, they were suppressed. They felt more and more aggrieved. Of course, Qin Ying did not appear, and they started to feel despair. Their big brother might have really met with an accident. The Asura ancient land had yet to open, and some of the sites of the famous sects of the southern region had returned from the spatial cracks after the laws of heaven and earth were gradually restored. This had triggered many conflicts. All of the major factions wanted to occupy them and fight for the treasures within. Ding Yu and the others were also involved. It was as if a crushing force had driven out the other contenders. When the experts of the major factions of the northern zone saw that their juniors could not win and wanted to make a move, Du Yuan's role came into play. He used his identity as a Heaven Realm expert to intimidate some of them. Since there were Heaven Realm experts supporting them, the experts of the various large factions would not interfere in the affairs of the juniors. This was a tacit understanding between them. Of course, it was also because there were no very rare or precious treasures. Otherwise, why would they care about the tacit understanding? They would just beat everyone up. Time passed as the conflicts continued. Soon, a year had passed. The southern region was in turmoil. Xin Yuanfeng and the others were having an extremely difficult time. Injuries had become a common occurrence. Qin Ying had still yet to appear, and they were growing more and more desperate. Cao Tianyi was becoming more and more arrogant. You've been cooped up for 21 years, and have been rewarded with a lump of chaotic energy. Chu Zan was stunned. He had actually been rewarded with another lump of chaotic energy. Could it be that every year in the future, he would receive a lump of chaotic energy? He received a lump of chaotic energy from the system. This lump of chaotic energy replenished his dwindling supply, and the refinement and transformation speed of his Tao principles increased further. He was one step closer to breaking through to the third level of the Tao realm. As usual, Chu Zan took out the Chaos Tao mirror and searched for Tao realm experts and above. On the surface of the mirror, the needle rotated. Suddenly, it stopped, and an image appeared. On an island filled with the sounds of birds chirping and the fragrance of flowers, there were a few people. In a pavilion in the middle of the island sat a scholarly middle-aged man. Beside the scholar sat an extremely beautiful woman. She was pouring tea for him, and her eyes were filled with affection. Occasionally, her gaze would drift toward the few people outside the pavilion. Chapter 229, Human King Luo Xinbai. Chu Zan sighed when he saw this scene. What a good couple, perhaps this was love. The information on the mirror revealed who he was. The person discovered by the Chaos Tao mirror was this middle-aged scholar. One look was enough to tell that he was a refined scholar, the type who was well-read and well-spoken. He was refined and handsome, and strong to boot. It was no wonder that beauty was so infatuated with him. Luo Xinbai, the second human king of the Eastern Zone. He has reached the 15th level of the Tao realm. He received the inheritance of the Kunhe and ascended to the throne of the human king of the Eastern Zone. With great perseverance and wisdom, he blazed his own path and reached the Tao realm. Chu Zan. It was actually the Luo family's human king. Qin Ying's ancestor. He raised his head to take a closer look. Outside the Chu family's territory, the Luo family's divine realm ancestor, who was still floating in midair, was also a descendant of Luo Xinbai. A peerless expert who had reached the 15th level of the Tao realm. It was truly fate. Furthermore, Luo Xinbai was a disciple of Kunhe. If Luo Xinbai was the second human king of the Eastern Zone, was Kunhe the first? However, Kunhe's fame was far inferior to Luo Xinbai's. Currently, the Eastern Zone only knew of the Luo family's human king, but not Kunhe. Perhaps it was because Kunhe had ascended to the human king position too long ago. Chu Zan pointed the Chaos Tao mirror toward the beautiful woman by Luo Xinbai's side to obtain her information. She was not particularly strong, having only reached the second level of the Tao realm, but she was Luo Xinbai's true love. He then directed the Chaos Tao mirror toward the other people on the island. As expected of a human king, how could he only have one true love? Luo Xinbai had a total of 4 Tao partners. The one in the pavilion should be the main wife, and also the one with the strongest cultivation. There was also a Tao companion who had reached the first level of the Tao realm. The remaining 2 had already reached the peak of the divine realm, and were almost ready to step into the Tao realm. Their bodies contained a faint trace of Tao aura. If nothing unexpected happened, breaking through to the first level of the Tao realm would not be difficult. As expected of a human king, the talent levels of his Tao companions was extremely monstrous. Presumably, these 4 women were peerless beauties in the 9 zones. In addition to the Tao companions, 3 of Luo Xinbai's children were also on the island. His 2 sons and 1 daughter were already at the peak of the divine realm. As expected of a direct descendant of a human king, their talent levels were indeed pretty good. Based on the innocent appearance of Luo Xinbai's children, they definitely had not left the island and had not seen the world. He did not continue to observe them and directly pulled Luo Xinbai into the Great Tao Communication Group. Luo Xinbai, who was drinking tea with his beloved, suddenly had a change in expression and stood up in a flash. Xinbai, what's wrong? Luo Xinbai's expression changed again and again, before finally revealing an excited expression. He sat down again, waved his hand, and said, I need to be alone for a while. When his Tao partner heard this, she left the pavilion. The couple had been together for so long, so they naturally knew each other very well. Whenever Luo Xinbai encountered an uncertain situation and needed to think, he would do this. Chu Zan spoke in the Great Tao Communication Group. Please welcome our newest group member, Luo Xinbai, who has reached the 15th level of the Tao realm. He did not mention that he was a disciple of Kunhe. Luo Xinbai, Kunhe was the first to appear. He asked in doubt, the Eastern Zone's human king, Luo Xinbai. That's me, Luo Xinbai replied in the group and at the same time, understood what this great Dao communication group was. I am Kun He, you can be considered my disciple. Being able to enter the great Dao communication group is your great fortune. Luo Xinbai was shocked. Master Kun He, that's me. The Kun He's Dao aura surged and transformed itself to prove his identity. Disciple Luo Xinbai pays his respects to Master. There's no need for formalities. Welcome to the group. Chu Zan spoke at the right time, he's actually fellow Taoist Kun He's disciple. It's fate. It is his great fortune that he was able to meet fellow Taoist Chu. Luo Xinbai immediately thanked Chu Zan. How could a person respected by his master be simple? Then Huang Long and Gui Ran appeared to chat. There's a newcomer. Call me Senior Huang Long and I'll give you a welcome gift. Greetings, Senior Huang Long. And me, Senior Gui Ran. Greetings, Senior Gui Ran. Luo Xinbai greeted them both respectfully. If they were people his master respected, they were definitely experts worthy of his respect. Huang Long and Gui Ran each sent treasures to Luo Xinbai. In the pavilion, Luo Xinbai suddenly sensed the fluctuations of the great Dao, and then 2 items appeared. He could not sense where the items came from. He was shocked, but then soon became overjoyed. He had not expected to encounter such a great opportunity even after breaking through to the Dao realm. He accepted the 2 supreme treasures. One was a time-related supreme treasure, and the other was a defensive supreme treasure. Chu Zan looked at the group chat and lamented that Luo Xinbai was indeed a human king. He was too damn clever. He had just obtained a treasure, and he immediately began to flatter them. Every time he flattered, he would mention his master, Kun He, both openly and in passing. Kun He was overjoyed. He immediately passed some treasures to Luo Xinbai to help his other Dao partners break through to the Dao realm as soon as possible. Kid Luo, quickly greet your grandpa Mo too. Demon Butcher felt sour. This human kid was even more eloquent and pleasing than his own demon race's junior. Old demon, go away, Kun He said. At this moment, Luo Xinbai had already figured out the cultivation of the people in the great Dao communication group. All of them were Dao realm experts. Among them, a few of them were even Daoyuan realm experts. They were legendary existences. The group leader was even more mysterious. Chu Zan looked at the bustling great Dao communication group. As the group leader, he was a mysterious expert. His exalted status meant that he could not participate in the banter, and could not mess around with the juniors. In that case, should he create a Smurf account? Indeed, if he opened a Smurf account, he could direct the conversation in the group, and perhaps even trick people. Chu Zan immediately pondered on what type of Smurf account to open. Of course, it could not be too strong, and it could not be too weak. At the very least, it could not be weaker than Ying Kong. Someone had to prop up the bottom ranks, after all. He had to figure out where these Dao realm experts were hiding to cultivate. For whatever reason, they were not active in the 9 zones. Ying Kong only knew the basics, but lacked concrete information. As such, he needed the Smurf account to ask these common-sense questions. However, it would need the appropriate background and identity to do so. This kind of persona was too difficult. How could someone who managed to cultivate to the Dao realm be a complete newbie? The creatures of the great Dao had very little experience with the outside world, but pretending to be one of them would bring with it a high risk of being exposed. After all, there were 2 creatures of the great Dao in the group. Chu Zan frowned, thinking about what kind of persona his Smurf account should have. Su Shaner walked over and said with a smile, "Sir, the kids of the Chu family don't even know what it's like outside Chu County. They've been locked up by the Chu family and haven't seen the world yet." Chu Zan had a flash of inspiration when he heard that. That's right, he could create a Smurf account with a super awesome background. However, his Smurf account was locked up by an elder somewhere and living a sheltered life. It was a character that had not seen the world yet. "I've got it, sir, what have you got?" Su Shaner was puzzled. "It's fine, go play somewhere else. Don't pay attention to those little guys from the Chu family." Chu Zan waved his hand and said. Ignoring Su Shaner's mutterings, Chu Zan condensed a ball of Dao aura and inserted it into the origin Dao crystal. Then, he changed the Dao aura inside. His cultivation level was set to the 6th level of the Dao realm, which was a little stronger than Ying Kong's. His name, he would be called Handsome Heaven Breaker. Chu Zan touched his face and looked at the members of the great Dao communication. He chuckled. Hee, I have opened a Smurf account to trick you guys. Chapter 230, Deceiving Luo Ming. Chuzan did not immediately add his Smurf account into the group. Luo Xinbai had just joined today, and this Smurf account's background was too magnificent. He needed to find a different opportunity to add it into the group. Moreover, he did not have the time to deceive the group's members now. The laws of heaven and earth in the southern region were recovering at an accelerated pace, and the Asura ancient land was about to open. He needed to devote his full attention to the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan. He could not afford to let anything distract him into making mistakes. This was his grand plan to control the southern region, the northern zone, and eventually the entire 9 zones. Luo Xinbai was active in the group, trying his best to curry favor with Huanglong and the other Daoyuan realm cultivators, especially Ruoxian. She was the only woman in the Daoyuan realm. He asked Ruoxian for some insights and treasures to help his Dao partners break through. Ruoxian was very familiar with Kunhe, so she naturally gave his disciple generous pointers. She had a good impression of Luo Xinbai because he doted on his Dao partners so much. Chuzan seriously suspected that Luo Xinbai had used his mouth to sweet-talk his way into the inheritance back then. He fawned on many experts and received the support of countless people. He was truly worthy of his title as human king. Chuzan glanced at the Luo family's divine realm ancestor, who was still governing above the Chu family's territory. Chuzan waved his hand and brought him over. As for Luo Xinbai's descendants, they could be tricked into running errands for him. He could even trick the entire Luo family into doing things for him. Luo Ming kept staring at the Chu family's territory. His instinct told him that there was something very wrong here. Moreover, he also wanted to see where that person had come from. He could even pay him a visit. Suddenly, before he could react, he appeared in a small courtyard. He did not even know where he was now. Luo Ming was shocked, and cold sweat ran down his forehead. It was too terrifying. How could there be such a terrifying expert in this world? Even a peak divine realm expert would not be able to do something like this. Furthermore, what was such a terrifying existence doing in the southern region? Even the experts of the desolate ancient zone paled in comparison. This majestic divine realm cultivator was actually drenched in cold sweat at this moment. Chuzan was enveloped in the 7-colored divine light. Behind him was the heaven-shaking divine image. His body was surrounded by strands of the great Tao. Luo Ming could not see his face clearly. At a glance, it was as if he was looking straight at the great Tao. Luo Ming did not dare to look further. He lowered his head slightly. "Don't be nervous." Chuzan's voice was amiable. "Which generation of Luo Xinbais are you from?" "Luo Xinbai." Luo Ming's body trembled. In the 9 zones, there were very few people who knew the human king's name. Furthermore, from the tone of the other party's voice, Luo Xinbai seemed like a junior to this expert. "Senior, I am Luo Xinbai's 4th great-grandson, Luo Ming." "Oh." Chuzan let out a soft, "oh," and continued casually, "so you are little Xinbai's great-grandson. Your cultivation is a little lacking." Little Xinbai. In his eyes, his great-grandfather was just a little guy. He was definitely a super terrifying expert, and he knew his great-grandfather. As for this senior's comment about his cultivation, Luo Ming acknowledged it. He was only at the 5th level of the divine realm. In the eyes of such an unfathomable existence, he was naturally inferior. "Junior's talent is lacking. I'm ashamed," Luo Ming said in embarrassment. "I can see that you're way worse than your great-grandfather." Chuzan nodded. The corners of Luo Ming's mouth twitched slightly. This senior's words were too straightforward. Thinking back to little Xinbai, he was quick-witted, a sweet talker, and very efficient in handling matters. As his descendant, you actually didn't inherit any of his good traits. It's a bit of a pity. Chuzan spoke slowly with a reminiscing expression. Luo Ming's waist bowed lower and lower. The big shot in front of him was actually a supreme existence who had once guided his great-grandfather. His heart pounded rapidly. Perhaps this could also be his fortuitous encounter. With just a little guidance from this senior, he should be able to break through to the 7th level of the divine realm or higher, right? Chuzan talked about some of his past encounters with Luo Xinbai. He briefly mentioned that he and Luo Xinbai's master, Kunhe, were quite good friends. Then, he pretended to casually ask, where are Luo Xinbai's descendants? Have they broken through to the divine realm or higher? "Senior, my ancestors and father are all above the 7th level of the divine realm. They entered the desolate ancient zone a long time ago, and I haven't seen them for a long time. You're the only divine realm kid in charge of the Luo family." "No, there's also an uncle of mine who has returned. His cultivation level is higher than mine. He's reached the 8th level of the divine realm. Chuzan briefly asked about the Luo family's situation and gained an understanding of the Luo family's actual strength. Luo Ming also answered this expert's questions one by one. Of course, he definitely had some reservations. It was definitely impossible for him to completely trust Chuzan. Chuzan sighed, as expected of a human king's family. Their strength and foundation was beyond imagination. Luo Xinbai was, after all, a human king. By the time he left the family, he was definitely already a Dao realm expert. Naturally, he left behind sufficient resources, especially treasures that could help his descendants break through to the heaven realm and other higher realm bottlenecks. Chuzan waved his hand, and an image appeared. Luo Xinbai, this little guy, is living a carefree life. He had 3 more children, you know. Luo Ming looked up, his brain buzzed with shock. On the island in the image, an elegant middle-aged scholar was accompanied by a beautiful woman. Was that not his great-grandfather and great-grandmother? This senior did not lie to him. He really knew his great-grandfather. Chuzan shut off the image and said, "Do you want me to send a message to Luo Xinbai?" "I wouldn't dare to trouble you, senior," Luo Ming hurriedly said. "On account of Luo Xinbai, I'll give you some pointers. The 9 zones are about to undergo a great change. You need to be prepared," Chuzan said in a profound manner. Luo Ming's heart shook. The 9 zones were about to undergo a great change. It was no wonder there was something special happening in the desolate ancient zone. Many divine realm experts seemed to be attracted by something, and unconsciously returned to the 8 zones. It turned out that the 9 zones were about to undergo a great change. "Senior, can you tell me a bit more?" Luo Ming asked carefully. It was not just for himself, but also for the Luo family. "This is a secret of the heavens. Knowing it will not benefit you." Chuzan pondered for a moment before continuing, "Qinying and I are fated. He is my unnamed disciple. Not only does he possess the Luo family's bloodline, but he is also related to Luo Xinbai. He will be able to lead the Luo family through the great change. You must know that with the advent of the great change, it is normal for divine realm cultivators to fall. Only those with great luck will be able to survive the great calamity. Qinying is extraordinary in that sense." Luo Ming listened respectfully, and his mind was filled with countless thoughts. In the future, the Luo family would rely on Qinying to lead the Luo family through the calamity. Chuzan's words had a basis. After all, Qinying was extraordinary. He was once the #1 genius of the northern zone and the supreme emperor of the great Qin Empire who had once unified the southern region. He had not reached the divine realm, yet had single-handedly devised a plan to foil a divine realm expert's scheme. How many people could compare with his boldness and methods? "Thank you for your guidance, senior. However, if you have any instructions for us, the Luo family will definitely complete it even if we have to go through the flames of hell," Luo Ming said respectfully. Chuzan was waiting for him to say this. More importantly, Qinying would be in charge of the Luo family, so the Luo family would naturally become his subordinate. In the future, when the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan was implemented in the Eastern Zone, the Luo family would be able to play a significant role. Chapter 231, Xiaoliang vs. the Evil Sun. Chuzan looked at him with a kind expression and said, "Take this. If anyone contacts you, you can try your best to help that person." A Myriad Zone Talisman floated in front of Luo Ming. This was a specially made Myriad Zone Talisman, and Chuzan had hidden a wisp of his Dao aura within it. An item given by a super big shot naturally would not be ordinary. The Myriad Zone Talisman could save Luo Ming's life during critical moments. Moreover, once the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan was successful, anyone holding this Myriad Zone Talisman in a place covered by the Heavenly Dao laws would be able to receive the Heavenly Dao's favor. He would not treat his subordinates too poorly. "Many thanks, senior." Luo Ming received the Myriad Zone Talisman and became extremely excited. This jade talisman was obviously extraordinary. "This pill is to help your cultivation." Chuzan waved his hand again, and a bottle of medicinal pills floated in front of Luo Ming. Divine Origin Pills. These were supreme medicinal pills for divine realm cultivators. Ren Cheng and Buddha Nanwu had consumed these pills to cultivate. The speed at which their cultivation increased was so fast that it would make other divine realm cultivators go crazy with jealousy. Luo Ming became even more excited. After receiving the medicinal pills, he immediately knelt down and kowtowed. How could the medicinal pills given by such a big shot be ordinary? "Cultivate well. You can leave now." "Yes, senior." Luo Ming left in excitement. The Luo family was destined to soar again. It was decided after this matter, that Qin Ying would become the next head of the Luo family. In any case, he would not get married. Moreover, they could use Qin Ying to build a relationship with this senior. After successfully deceiving Luo Ming, the Luo family indirectly became his subordinate force. After the battle for the Asura ancient land ended, the Black Moon Tower could rely on them to expand into the eastern zone. Given the Luo family's strength in the eastern zone, it was easy enough to support the Black Moon Tower there. With their assistance, the Black Moon Tower could lay the foundation for the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan to be implemented in the eastern zone in advance. When the laws of heaven and earth in the northern zone were subsumed by the Heavenly Tao Talisman, they would be replaced by the Heavenly Tao laws. After that, they would proceed with implementing the plan in the eastern zone. The demon zone had Demon Buddha, so it could be carried out there as well. The monster zone had Hu Tianya, so that would not be a big problem either. Chu Zan pondered this matter for a while. The plan was very solid and could be implemented slowly. The key catalyst was the southern region. As long as the plan was successful in the southern region, then future implementations would be smooth. Chu Zan turned his gaze to a corner of the southern region, where the Asura ancient land was located. The space there rippled. The Asura ancient land was about to return from the spatial cracks. The major factions of the northern zone gathered, and Heaven's Blessed appeared one after another. Among them, Cao Tianyi, Mo Hongliu, and the Evil Sun were the most popular. They were also the three strongest Emperor realm cultivators so far. They were also the strongest opponents in the eyes of the other factions, Heaven's Blessed, and they were the ones with the highest chance of obtaining the Fate treasures. Compared to them, Xin Yuanfeng and the others were being suppressed, and it was rumored that the great Qin Emperor, Qin Ying, who had unified the southern region and was known as the #1 genius in the northern zone, had yet to appear. Most people silently agreed that he had already died. The various factions in the northern zone had yet to take sides, but they were still wary of Cao Tianyi and the Great Qian Palace. No matter what, Cao Tianyi had lured the demon race into invading. As for Mo Hongliu, he was half human and half demon, so not many people knew that he was the reincarnation of the demon race Divine Realm Elder. Not every faction in the northern zone had a Heaven Realm Elder who had returned to guide them. Hence, they were very cautious in choosing sides. If it was possible, most factions were willing to side with Qin Ying. Cao Tianyi had done some disgraceful things back then. The Evil Sun was an outsider with a bad personality. The Great Evil Palace's reputation was not good to begin with, so no one would choose to side with him. The experts of Nine Swords Mountain had already contacted the various major powers and reached a consensus. Even if Qin Ying had really died, they could not let all of the fate treasures fall into Cao Tianyi's hands. What did he do to deserve the position of human king of the northern zone? Ding Yu also arrived on site and waited for it to open. No matter what, the fate treasures of the 5 regions could not be allowed to fall into the hands of others. Chu Yun came to watch the show. Beauty, how about enjoying yourself in my great evil palace? The Evil Sun actually walked over to Chu Yun's side and said with a bewitching smile. Chu Yun frowned and ignored him. She turned around and walked away. Unexpectedly, the Evil Sun's figure flashed and blocked her path again. He said, "Don't go, Beauty, which faction are you from? To receive the favor of my great evil palace is an honor for the faction behind you." The heavenly spirit cat stretched out its claws as it considered whether or not to kill this guy with one strike. At this moment, a long spear flew over and blocked the Evil Sun's path. There are so many people who are not afraid of death. The Evil Sun narrowed his eyes and stared at Xiao Liang with a murderous intent. Evil Sun, right, get out of my way. Xiao Liang sneered. You're courting death, Shua. Blood chi bloomed as a sinister and strange blood claw struck toward Xiao Liang. Boom, the spear shattered the blood claw, and Xiao Liang snorted coldly. His spear chi surged forth and instantly broke through the Evil Sun's domain power, his spear stabbing toward the latter's throat. The Evil Sun's expression changed, and the evil aura around his body surged. A strange-shaped long claw appeared over his hand, and blood chi filled the air. Boom, both sides immediately started fighting. It's the Evil Sun. Who dared to pick a fight with him? It's not Cao Tianyi or Mo Hongliu. Who has the strength to do so? The battle between Xiao Liang and the Evil Sun quickly attracted the attention of the nearby cultivators. Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu also looked over. Their expressions were solemn. This person was so strong. I recognize him. He's the spear expert who challenged the 100 Emperor realm experts alone. He doesn't look like that person. Nonsense, he changed his appearance when he challenged the checkpoint. This should be his true appearance. Many experts from the major factions looked over. They were all shocked. He was so powerful, he was going toe-to-toe against the evil sun without missing a beat. He was indeed worthy of his fame as someone who fought alone against 100 Emperor Realm experts. Some people from the major powers of the western region recognized him as well. That's Xiao Liang from the Xiao family. Was Xiao Liang this powerful? How did the Xiao family end up parting with such a prodigy? The experts of the Xiao family from the western region had gloomy expressions on their faces. They were very dissatisfied with the current patriarch of the Xiao family. Evil son, you're pretty average. Xiao Liang smiled contemptuously. Ha, what's this about a prodigy who fought 100 Emperor Realm experts alone? You're pretty average too. Let's decide the victor inside the Asura ancient land. The evil son sneered. The battle did not continue. Xiao Liang was very strong, and he would not be able to beat Xiao Liang with his ordinary strength. However, it was impossible for him to reveal his trump cards at this time. There was a Heaven Realm expert from the Great Evil Palace who wanted to make a move. However, Lu Piaopiao's figure faintly appeared and the power of the laws of heaven and earth spread out. She coldly glared at the experts from the Great Evil Palace. Chu Zan naturally was watching the scene of Xiao Liang fighting the evil sun. Moreover, the evil sun had actually dared to harass Chu Yun. He was courting death. He immediately thought of the little evil king in the lucky mystic realm. So many years had passed. After bitterly cultivating in the lucky mystic realm, the little evil king's strength had increased by leaps and bounds, and he had already broken through to the 9th level of the Emperor realm. He was temporarily unable to break through to the Supreme realm. It was also time for him to come out. He was Chu Yun's lackey, and the evil sun was his enemy. Would the little evil king spare the evil sun? The little evil king who cultivated the evil warding immortal scripture was no weaker than the evil sun. After all, the evil warding immortal scripture was rather unique to begin with. Its attacks were rather unique, and it had been specially created by Chu Zan. The little evil king was strong enough to fight the evil sun. To be able to enter the lucky mystic realm and cultivate inside, his strength could not be judged with common sense. Chapter 232, Revenge for foiling his plan. A few more days passed, and the Northern Zone's elite cultivators who had obtained entry slots all gathered. Xin Yuanfeng and the others had solemn expressions, and their eyes were filled with despair. Their big brother had truly met with an accident. He had not returned. Rumble. The Asura ancient land trembled, and spatial ripples spread out. Then, within the dilapidated ancient land, a radiance instantly bloomed and disappeared. Everyone was shocked. Supreme treasure. Supreme fate treasures. After such a long time, the fate treasures must have undergone a transformation. Moreover, there might be more than just the 5 regions' fate treasures. The Asura ancient land might have given birth to lower-level fate treasures, or even emperor-level fate treasures. Cao Tianyi's eyes were burning with desire. If he obtained the fate treasures, even without the support of the position of human king, he could break through his cultivation bottleneck. He had once touched the boundary of that mysterious realm. Many years ago, he had obtained an incomplete scroll in the desolate ancient zone. From it, he had learned that there was an even more mysterious and powerful realm above the divine realm. He had never seen or heard of that realm. Moreover, his cultivation had not reached the peak of the divine realm. From the incomplete scroll, he had learned that if he possessed great fate, he would have the chance to reach the peak of the divine realm, and perhaps reach that mysterious higher realm. He wanted to reach that higher realm. For that reason, he quietly left the desolate ancient zone and returned to the northern zone. He started planning everything secretly. He would lure the demon race into invading the human race of the northern zone. The human race of the northern zone would then face a great calamity and, when he stepped forth to rescue them, he would become the first human king of the northern zone. Once he was a human king, supported by the human race's luck, he would strive to reach that mysterious higher realm. The first part of his plan had gone smoothly. At that time, all of the divine realm experts of the 9 zones were exploring the desolate ancient zone in hopes of finding a way forward for their cultivation. He believed that with his divine realm might, he could definitely rescue the human race from their calamity at the crucial moment. He was considered a peerless genius among divine realm cultivators, so he was definitely not weak. For this plan, he had even secretly destroyed the great array connecting the zones, preventing human experts from the other zones from quickly reinforcing the northern zone. In the end though, Qin Ying ruined his plan and took away the fate of the 5 regions. The great Qin Emperor, who had unified the southern region, had forcefully taken away the fate of the southern region. This caused his plan to fail. Furthermore, the appearance of a demon race divine realm elder ultimately led to a full-fledged war with the demon race. Qin Ying, you deserve to die. Cao Tianyi's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Qin Yuanfeng and the others with an extremely cold gaze. Mo Hongliu was extremely excited. He did not care about the human king position as he could not ascend to the human king position. He was not a pure human. Back then, for the sake of obtaining a supreme treasure and attaining the legendary higher realm, he had given up his identity as a heavenly demon and reincarnated as a human-demon hybrid. After all, without the bloodline of the human race, he could not obtain the human race's fate treasures. After all, the hybrid body also possessed the bloodline of the human race, so he could also obtain the fate treasures and receive their blessing. As long as he could obtain one or two of them, he could carry out his plan and try to attain that legendary higher realm. The evil son was also excited. If he could unify the northern zone and ascend to the human king's position, it would naturally be the best. If he could not, he should still be able to obtain one of the treasures, which would help him to become stronger quickly. Qin Yuanfeng and the others gritted their teeth as they looked at the Asura ancient land. Their hearts were bleeding. They had sacrificed too much for this yet. In the end, their big brother encountered an accident and could not return. No matter what, even if we die, we can't allow Cao Tianyi to get what he wants. Qin Yuanfeng said with gritted teeth. Pang Xinghai and the others nodded solemnly. Cao Tianyi looked over coldly and said, the fate treasures cannot be used by those above the Emperor realm. Therefore, we'll leave the fighting to the Emperor realm cultivators. The uniqueness of the fate treasures was that those above the Emperor realm would be rejected. Even those at the divine realm would suffer a backlash from fate if they forcefully took the fate treasures. It was not worth the risk. The Tao of fate was too mysterious. The higher the level of the fate treasure, the higher the requirement for the one who obtained it. Those who could obtain the fate treasures were all extremely talented geniuses who possessed great luck. This was also the reason why the heaven realm experts from the major forces, and even those at the divine realm did not participate in it. Only the Emperor realm cultivators could participate. Otherwise, how could such treasures not end up in the hands of these divine realm experts? Qin Ying is dead. The grudge of foiling my plan will be borne by all of you. As Cao Tianyi spoke, he walked toward Qin Yuanfeng and the others step by step. The Emperor realm experts of the Great Qian Palace followed suit, along with the elite cultivators of Cao Tianyi's faction. Qin Yuanfeng and the others' faces were gloomy, but they did not display any fear as they went up to meet him. Nine Swords Mountain, the Kashan Alliance, the Yu family, and the other Emperor realm cultivators all followed suit. These were the factions that had opposed Cao Tianyi's plan back then. As for the other forces that favored Qin Ying, since Qin Ying was not around, they were hesitating at this moment and did not take sides immediately. Most of these other forces lacked a divine realm expert, so taking sides rashly was extremely disadvantageous. Aside from the Ling family of the eastern region, Cao Tianyi's faction also included the Su family of the central region. Ling Beiyun, the heavens blessed of the Ling family, and Su Xuan, the heavens blessed of the Su family. In terms of both strength and numbers, Qin Yuanfeng and the others were already at a disadvantage. Pang Xinghai, Qin Yuanfeng, and Peng Qiguang had to join forces to block Cao Tianyi, while Yu Beilong had no obvious advantage against Ling Beiyun. Bai Xiaokong was evenly matched against Su Xuan, so he would not be able to defeat Su Xuan within a short period of time. Nine Swords Mountain might not lose to the Great Qian Palace in a battle between their Emperor realm cultivators, while the forces of the Kashan Alliance and the Yu family were similar to that of the Ling and Su families. Mo Hongliu, it's time for you to help. Since Qin Ying is dead, it's time to clean up his people. We'll decide the victor between us after that. Cao Tianyi looked at Mo Hongliu and said coldly. Hey, alright, it's a good time to clean up Qin Ying's side anyway. Mo Hongliu smiled. He spun the half-moon blade in his hand and walked over. Qin Yuanfeng and the others' hearts sank. They did not doubt Mo Hongliu's strength. Hence, Peng Qiguang turned his gaze to the evil son. Do you not think that they will join forces to target you later? The evil son's eyes flashed as he continued to smile. There's no need to try to rope me in. My great evil palace is also Qin Ying's enemy. As he spoke, he actually stepped forward and said, it's time to take revenge. Pang Xinghai and the others' faces were gloomy. They were stuck in a terrible predicament at the moment. Clang, two young men who looked exactly the same walked out slowly and blocked the evil son's path. Since you are from the Great Evil Palace, you are an enemy of our Zhang family. Evil son, we will be your opponent. The Zhang family was a family from the central region that focused on the sword Dao. It's the Zhang family's twin experts. Is the Zhang family going to side with Xin Yuanfeng and the others? Qin Ying is dead, it's not wise for them to take that side. Some powerful experts discussed in low voices. Cao Tianyi narrowed his eyes. Has the Zhang family made their choice? Our Zhang family will only target the Great Evil Palace. I hope so, Cao Tianyi said coldly. Golden light blossomed around his entire body as the god-slaying saber aura surrounded him. His golden fists were filled with killing intent. He charged toward Xin Yuanfeng and the others. I'll deal with that scoundrel Cao Tianyi with third brother. Fourth and fifth brother will deal with Mo Hongliu. Seventh brother will deal with Su Xuan, and the rest will split up to deal with Ling Beiyun. Pang Xinghai said in a deep voice. Chapter 233, Ding Yu makes his move. A great battle between Emperor Realm cultivators broke out in an instant. The Heaven Realm experts of Nine Swords Mountain were also on standby. Perhaps a great battle between Heaven Realm experts would break out before the Asura Ancient Land was opened. The moment the battle started, Pang Xinghai and Xin Yuanfeng were at a disadvantage. However, the two of them were still top-notch Heaven's Blessed. Cao Tian would not be able to emerge victorious over them within a short period of time. Peng Qiguang and Yu Beilong fought Mo Hongliu. They were already bleeding profusely, but they had managed to hold Mo Hongliu back for the time being. Bai Xiaokong had a slight advantage over Su Xuan, but it would not be easy for him to score an outright victory. In the battle between the other Emperor Realm cultivators, Nine Swords Mountain had already fallen into a disadvantage. The battle strength of their cultivators was a notch lower than their opponents. Ling Beiyun was too strong. The 5 or 6 Emperor Realm geniuses from Nine Swords Mountain could barely withstand his attacks. At this moment, colorful petals fell. Wherever the petals fell, there would be death and destruction. A beautiful figure led a group of Emperor Realm female experts and charged into the Great Qian Palace's forces. The beautiful woman was surrounded by petals. Her killing intent spread in all directions. In an instant, she killed 3 Emperor Realm cultivators of the Ling family. Ling Beiyun threw a punch at the woman. Sixth sister. Pang Xinghai shouted happily. Even if he's dead, I, Hua Qianzi, will do everything I can to complete his plan. The Holy Maiden of the Floating Flower Pavilion, Hua Qianzi. With the participation of the Floating Flower Pavilion, the situation gradually stabilized. However, everyone knew that Xin Yuanfeng and Pang Xinghai's defeat was inevitable. Hua Qianzi was extremely powerful. As the flowers bloomed around her, her killing intent followed. Each flower that bloomed hindered and trapped Ling Beiyun. Furthermore, she still had some energy left. She used her free hand to attack Su Xuan. She actually wanted to use her own strength to stall Su Xuan and Ling Beiyun, freeing Bai Xiaokong. In the small courtyard, Chu Zan watched the battle happening in front of the Asura Ancient Land. He was very relaxed, as if he was watching a movie. Su Shaner saw Su Xuan and pursed her lips. Sir, I want to go and mess with the Su family. Go ahead. Chu Zan waved his hand and gave his approval. Sir, have one of the Baldies protect me. That way, if I anger the Su family or the other forces there, I won't be afraid. Su Shaner tugged at Chu Zan's hand and said coquettishly. She knew how powerful Buddha Nanwu was. There were 2 other Baldies who were extremely powerful and had reached the divine realm. Chu Zan did not call for Buddha Nanwu. Instead, he summoned the left Buddha attendant and asked him to accompany Su Shaner. It was about time for some experts to appear. If anything were to happen, Grandpa Zhang might not be able to handle it alone. The left Buddha attendant was already at the 8th level of the divine realm. He was about to reach the 9th level of the divine realm and was considered extremely powerful among divine realm cultivators. Su Shaner left joyfully. Chu Zan watched Ling Beiyun fight. Although he was very powerful, he did not display the strength that a fated son of the eastern region should have. The method he used back then seemed to be effective. Ling Beiyun's fate had already weakened. Now, the fate of the eastern region was no longer solely focused on him. It was precisely because of this that he was not able to rely on his status as a child of fate and was held back by Hua Qianzi. Hua Qianzi made her move and stabilized the situation. However, very quickly, the situation changed once again. A young man holding a pill cauldron walked out. A few Emperor Realm experts followed him. The flames from the pill cauldron instantly destroyed Hua Qianzi's petals and charged toward her. Heavenly Cauldron Mountain, Dan Sangzi, you're a traitor. Pang Xinghai and Xin Yuanfeng roared with bloodshot eyes. How can I be a traitor? I've always been Brother Cao's man. Dan Sangzi smiled gently. You deserve to die. Pang Xinghai and the others were furious. The one who leaked the news was actually Dan Sangzi. Anger is useless now, Cao Tianyi sneered. The god-slaying saber aura trapped Shen Yuanfang, and his golden fists kept bombarding Pang Xinghai. Hua Qianzi's face was livid. She abandoned Ling Beiyun and charged toward Dan Sangzi. Although Dan Sangzi was an alchemist, his strength was not weak. Moreover, there were 7 heavens blessed Emperor realm cultivators from the heavenly cauldron mountain with him. Hua Qianzi was instantly surrounded and gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Ding Yu and the others were watching the show unfold atop a small hill. They had no intention of interfering. Although these people were brothers with junior brother Qin, they had no relationship with these people. They only needed to ensure that the fate treasures did not fall into the hands of others. At this moment, a beautiful figure flew over. Ding Yu. It was Han Yingmeng. Miss Han, why are you looking for me? He asked with a yawn. To him, who had no woman in his heart, no matter how beautiful a woman was, he would not take another glance at her. Ding Yu, can you help me? Han Yingmeng asked anxiously. Hua Qianzi was her master in the floating flower pavilion. Now that Hua Qianzi was in danger, the only person she could seek help from was the evil Ding Yu. Alright, you've helped me with 2 things previously. We can be considered friends. What do you want me to help you with? Ding Yu agreed without hesitation. After all, Han Yingmeng had helped him before, which helped him break through the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword. He did not have many friends, but Han Yingmeng was one of them. Help me. Han Yingmeng originally wanted Ding Yu to help her deal with Dan Sangzi and save Hua Qianzi. However, on second thought, Cao Tianyi was the key. As long as Pang Xinghai and Shen Yuanfang were freed, they would naturally be able to save Hua Qianzi. However, Cao Tianyi was too strong. She hesitated and said, can you help me deal with Cao Tianyi? If not, then. If Ding Yu could not block Cao Tianyi, then she could only ask him to save Hua Qianzi. No problem. Ding Yu patted his chest and said. You'll offend a lot of people. Han Yingmeng was a little hesitant. Ding Yu's actions would definitely offend Cao Tianyi. Don't worry. I, Ding Yu, have never been afraid of offending people. Cao Tianyi is nothing but a piece of ancient trash. He only knows how to plot against the human race. Ding Yu was filled with disdain. He looked down on Cao Tianyi's actions from the bottom of his heart. Clang! Sword chi flashed and cut through the sky. Ding Yu made his move. Boom! One sword strike shattered the god-slaying saber aura, and another sword strike shattered the golden fist strikes, blocking Cao Tianyi's attack. Who are you? Cao Tianyi was furious. I, Ding Yu, am the #1 swordsman in the southern region. I despise you, you ancient piece of trash. Ding Yu said proudly. Thank you. Pang Xinghai and Shen Yuanfang cupped their fists and said gratefully. They dragged their wounded bodies and charged toward Dan Sangzi. Cao Tianyi shouted angrily, Mo Hongliu, block them. If you don't make a move, I, Cao Tianyi, will eliminate you first. Mo Hongliu snorted coldly. He was a hybrid of human and demon. If the major forces in the northern zone were determined enough and united, they could indeed eliminate him. Men, Emperor Realm experts from the Heavenly Saint sect rushed over and blocked Pang Xinghai and Shen Yuanfang's path. Ding Yu and Cao Tianyi were fighting. Hua Qianzi was still in danger. The area where the flowers fell was getting smaller and smaller. Han Yingmeng was extremely anxious. She regretted asking Ding Yu to deal with Cao Tianyi and not asking him to save her master directly. Boom! Suddenly, a huge halberd fell from the sky. Chapter 234. The magnificent Qin Ying stuns everyone. The halberd swept toward them with a domineering aura. Boom! The halberd killed an Emperor Realm Heavens Blessed from the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain. Then, the halberd struck again and killed another Emperor Realm Heavens Blessed. Hua Qianzi was extremely excited. He was back. When the halberd descended, Pang Xinghai and the others had tears in their eyes. Their big brother was back. Big, big, Shen Yuanfang turned around to look, but was soon dumbfounded. Brother Qin, Hua Qianzi could not help but shed tears as she turned around to look excitedly. The word, brother, stopped right there. The battlefield fell silent. Many people were dumbfounded. Cao Tianyi had stopped fighting, and Mo Hongliu also stopped. The evil son and the Zhang family had not even started fighting, they were just in a standoff. However, at this moment, they were no longer paying attention to each other. Only Qin Ying was attacking continuously. His killing intent was awe-inspiring, and his eyes were filled with fury as he stared at Dan Sangzi. He did not care about what the others were feeling. His halberd swept out, killing the rest of the seven heavens blessed from the heavenly cauldron mountain. Die! With an angry shout, an incomparably tyrannical halberd struck toward Dan Sangzi. Dan Sangzi was momentarily stunned. He was facing a life and death crisis. The pill cauldron instantly emerged, and tried to block the halberd to allow Dan Sangzi to escape. However, Qin Ying was furious at the traitor. How could he let him escape? The tyrant dragon body erupted, and his strength increased explosively. He was ferocious. Boom! The halberd sent the pill cauldron flying. He leapt up and slashed down with the halberd. Traitor, you must be killed. Save! Dan Sangzi was shocked. How could Qin Ying be so strong? He was even stronger than when he was at the Emperor realm back then. As soon as the cry for help was sent out, the experts of the heavenly cauldron mountain were locked onto by a few powerful auras. Boom! Dan Sangzi fell. Qin Ying domineeringly appeared and killed many geniuses, including Dan Sangzi. Peerless beauty. Many of the surrounding cultivators were mesmerized by this peerless beauty. There was actually such a peerless beauty in the world. Ding Yu had already returned. He looked at Qin Ying with wide eyes and asked, "Is the great Qin Emperor a woman?" It should be. I guess we should call her junior sister Qin." Wang Luo stammered. He felt that something was not right. He Yu was also dumbfounded. How could the great Qin Emperor be a woman? That was impossible. This was not Qin Ying, right? The great Qin Emperor is an unparalleled man who once unified the southern region, He Yu said in a low voice. Then what's going on? Ding Yu and the others were all dumbfounded. The dumbfounded people included Pang Xinghai, Xin Yuanfang, and the rest of Qin Ying's brothers. All of them had forgotten about their injuries as they looked at the peerlessly beautiful woman who had killed Dan Sangzi. Cao Tianyi was also dumbfounded. He was a well-informed person, and he had seen many unimaginable things. However, an 8-foot-tall, incomparably brave and ambitious figure had turned into a peerless beauty. No matter what, he could not accept it. It was too King hard to imagine. You are Big Brother Qin. Hua Qianzi's delicate body trembled and her face was pale, as if she could not bear this cruel reality. She suddenly pounced into Qin Ying's embrace and stretched out her delicate hand to press his. Hua Qianzi cried. It's true. She then touched her own, crying even more sorrowfully. Why is it like this? I want Big Brother Qin, not Sister Qin. We agreed that, in our next life, we would only love each other. How can it be like this? Hua Qianzi could not accept this cruel reality. How could her heroic big brother Qin turn into a peerless beauty? What was even more cruel was that he was even more well endowed than her. Qin Ying's expression was filled with grief. He had expected this to happen. I didn't King want this either. All of the cultivators remembered the great Qin Emperor to be a peerless hero that was 8 feet tall. However, he was now a peerless beauty. This was too King ridiculous. The spectators were all dumbfounded. The magnificent Qin Ying had stunned everyone the moment he appeared. Pang Xinghai, Xin Yuanfeng and the other brothers slowly approached him. They could not even be bothered with their injuries anymore. All of them had blank expressions and were at a loss. Was this really their big brother? Where was my domineering, brave, and peerless big brother? Where did he go? Are you really Big Brother Qin Ying? Pang Xinghai's lips quivered as he asked. Xin Yuanfeng and the others looked at Qin Ying with eager eyes. They very much hoped that this beauty in front of them was Big Brother Qin's Dao partner in this life. And not Big Brother Qin himself. Although that would mean that he had not fulfilled his promise to only love sixth sister, this was still a conclusion that they could accept. Qin Ying looked at his brothers and was filled with sorrow. He looked up at the sky and let out a long sigh. I didn't want to become King woman. Fate played me. I, Qin Ying, am supposed to be an 8 feet tall powerful man, but I've actually become a woman. Who can understand my feelings? His lips trembled for a long time before he finally gritted his teeth and looked angrily at Cao Tianyi in the distance. He shouted angrily, "Scoundrel Cao, it's all your fault." The brothers broke down and hugged each other with tears streaming down their faces. In their memories, their big brother's angry roar was like thunder, domineering and awe-inspiring. But now, that voice was clear and crisp. Even though it carried a domineering aura, it was no longer the same. She no longer had the incomparable domineering aura from before. Ignoring the fact that the brothers could not accept it, even an enemy like Cao Tianyi could not King accept it. Thinking back to that time, Qin Ying's domineering roar was unrivaled. He once lamented in his heart that if they were at the same cultivation level, he would not be as good as Qin Ying. However, the unrivaled domineering aura was gone. Instead, there was a forceful, but coquettish feeling. He could not stand it. The contrast between before and after was too king huge. The evil son looked at Qin Ying. The more he looked, the more his blood boiled. He had an irresistible impulse. She was too beautiful. No woman possessed such a peerless temperament. She was a peerless beauty of the 9 zones. However, when he thought about how such a beauty used to be a fierce and domineering man, he shuddered and his blood turned cold. It was him who had used a halberd to drive him out of the southern region and the northern zone. The evil son realized that he was not crazy enough to accept Qin Ying. Mo Hongliu was also stunned. He had also heard Qin Ying's domineering roar before. What about now? The great Tao was truly ever-changing. The older martial artists were dumbfounded as they stared at Qin Ying for a long time. The forces on Qin Ying's side were all dumbfounded. The forces that were inclined towards Qin Ying were also dumbfounded. The great Qian Palace, Su family, and Cao Tianyi's forces were also dumbfounded. They had heard of the great Qin Emperor and his fame. He was the overlord who had unified the southern region and was known as the #1 genius of the northern zone. In that era, Qin Ying had single-handedly suppressed every heavens blessed in the same realm. He had great ambitions and wanted to unify the northern zone and become the human king. However, in the end, he became a great beauty. This was too king ridiculous. Chapter 235. Why don't you and I become Tao partners? Qin Ying's heart was filled with sorrow and hatred. He held his halberd and charged toward Cao Tianyi. Scoundrel Cao, go to hell. Cao Tianyi retreated and waved his hand. Qin Ying, gather your brothers first. Let me take a breather. Where are you going? Cao Tianyi fled. This situation was too king ridiculous. He felt that he needed time to compose himself in order to deal with it better. Big brother. Pang Xinghai and the others chased after him. Hua Qianzi cried miserably. She could not accept the fact that her powerful big brother had turned into a big sister. Qin Ying stopped and looked at his brothers. Finally, he let out a long sigh. I've made you suffer. What big brother said. Peng Qiguang raised his head. He would bump chests with his big brother to express camaraderie back then. He could not bump chests. Furthermore, he could not stare at them. He hurriedly averted his eyes. How depressing. Silence. Only Hua Qianzi's sobbing could be heard. After a long while, Qin Ying finally said, there was an accident. Fate played a trick on me, so. I also know that this was extremely ridiculous, but it just happened this way. Brothers, do you know how devastated I was when I awakened my memories? Qin Ying roared inwardly. I still have a chance to become a man again, Qin Ying said unconfidently. He did not know if his master had a way. What do you want me to do? Hua Qianzi lay on Qin Ying's chest and cried her heart out. Qin Ying had a helpless look on his face. What kind of nonsense was this? I can still spoil you, Qin Ying rubbed her head and sighed. It's a good thing that Big Brother has returned, although there was an accident along the way. Xin Yuanfang sighed. Then, he continued, regardless of whether he's a man or a woman, Big Brother is still Big Brother. Big Brother still needs to lead us to resolve our grudge with Cao Tianyi and the fight for the Fate Treasures. Although Qin Ying had turned into a woman, her strength was not weak at all. In fact, she was even stronger than back then. As soon as she appeared, she killed the traitor Dan Sangzi. With Qin Ying as the backbone, they could unify the forces that were dissatisfied with Cao Tianyi and gain the upper hand in the fight. They might even be able to expel Cao Tianyi's forces before the Asura ancient land fully opened. The experts from Nine Swords Mountain also surrounded her. The group returned to the camp and discussed what they should do next. Was Qin Ying alone this time, or did she have a large faction supporting her from behind? The news that the great Qin Emperor had become a peerless beauty instantly spread throughout the northern zone, causing countless cultivators to be dumbstruck. At the checkpoint leading from the eastern region to the southern region, a dull-looking youth walked past. Chu Pingfan. His cultivation had already reached the 7th level of the Emperor realm, and his strength was still growing rapidly. He was definitely going to participate in the battle for the Asura ancient land. Moreover, it was time to settle the grudge between him and Ling Beiyun. Yuer was still following him closely. She lay on his shoulder and said, Fan, you might not be able to defeat him. Ling Beiyun was, after all, the eastern region's fated son. His strength was far beyond that of an ordinary heaven's blessed. Aren't you here, though? Chu Pingfan said calmly. That's right, I'll lend you my strength when the time comes, Yuer said happily. Before the Asura ancient land fully opened, peace was restored. The various large factions maintained their silence. Qin Ying's return meant that the battle with Cao Tianyi was about to begin. One had to choose sides or be neutral. Choosing sides meant taking risks. Being neutral meant that there was not much to gain. It was also possible that the winning side would be dissatisfied with them. In short, the situation in the northern zone would change. The factions without a divine realm expert were all very worried. They did not know what to do and could only remain neutral for now. Many factions were in favor of Qin Ying. However, they were worried that Cao Tianyi was too strong and that he would suppress Qin Ying's side. No matter what, Cao Tianyi had lured the demons to invade and had created a disaster for the human race. This was unacceptable. However, his strength made many factions fearful. Although Cao Tianyi had reincarnated, everyone knew that he was an extremely powerful divine realm expert. How could he be reincarnated without anyone backing him up? Moreover, other than him, there was also a divine realm ancestor from the Great Qian Palace. 3 days later, rumble, more parts of the Asura ancient land shimmered. It was almost as if it was about to emerge from the spatial cracks and return to the southern region. Space shook, and another beam of light flashed inside. On the small hill where Ding Yu and the others were, Su Shaner was standing beside Chu Yun, holding a long whip. She looked in the direction of Cao Tianyi's camp and snorted coldly, eagerly awaiting the chance to make a move. "Aren't you a member of the Su family? Why are you still targeting the Su family?" Shang Xing asked curiously. "Why don't you ask Wang Luo why he is targeting the Wang family instead?" Shang Xing shut his mouth. He thought of the Shang family. Now that he had grown stronger, he would definitely return at some point to cause trouble for the Shang family. Wang Luo suddenly said, "I was banished by the Wang family, senior brother Ding Yu was banished by Nine Swords Mountain, and sister Su also ran away from her marriage. Why does it feel like we have something in common? Does Master like taking in troubled disciples?" When he said that, Ding Yu and the others were stunned. This seemed to be the case. Could it be that Master liked to nurture the expelled disciples and help them to rise up and become strong? Did he like watching them crush their enemies' dignity and slap their faces? He Yu was deep in thought. From her analysis of the backgrounds of Ding Yu and the others, they seemed to have something in common. However, this common point was not the fact that they were expelled or despised. It was that they possessed great luck. They all had special talents and special luck. He Yu could not help but think of what Chu Zan had said about the great change that was about to happen in the 9 zones. Perhaps it was because of this that all these special talents appeared. Master would accept people with great luck as disciples. Was this to deal with the great change that was going to sweep the 9 zones? "Qin Ying, come out and meet me," Cao Tianyi shouted loudly. Qin Ying appeared. Putting aside his identity from his previous life, the current Qin Ying was a peerless beauty, one that was rarely seen in the world. This was especially so given her seemingly innately tyrannical temperament. "Scoundrel Cao, you traitorous human. You lured the demon race into invading the southern region and massacring the human race. You should be prepared for the consequences," Qin Ying said coldly. "Qin Ying, I haven't forgotten my grudge from you foiling my plan." Cao Tianyi snorted coldly. "Evil demons and crooked humans should be punished." Qin Ying retorted. "Qin Ying, I, Cao Tianyi, do not care about right or wrong. Both of us want to reach a higher realm. For this, we need the human king position of the northern zone. But why should we continue to fight? Why don't you and I put aside our past grudges and work together? You are now a woman. Why don't you and I become Dao partners and strive for supremacy together? Wouldn't that be beautiful?" The moment Cao Tianyi said that, the entire place fell silent. Everyone was dumbfounded. They never thought that Cao Tianyi would be like this. The evil son was dumbfounded. He muttered, "I'm still not as crazy as that old B***********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************� Liu was also dumbfounded. He sighed in his heart. As expected of that old B************** Cao Tianyi. He looked at Qin Ying. It had to be said that the current Qin Ying was truly a rare peerless beauty. Putting aside his past identity as a fierce man, he was a valiant beauty. He was truly a perfect Dao partner. Pa, what the FCK was I thinking? Mo Hongliu slapped himself. Chapter 236, Divine Realm Expert's Appearance. Qin Ying gripped his halberd tightly. His eyes turned red and his breathing became heavy. His chest heaved up and down as well. Xin Yuanfeng and Bai Xiaokong, who were at the side, looked at the heaving chest of their big brother. They were so scared that they hurriedly looked away. They could not look. They really could not look. They raised their hands and slapped themselves twice to calm themselves down. They could not let their imagination run wild. This was their big brother. B-starred Cao, how dare you humiliate me? Die. Qin Ying roared in anger. He waved his halberd and charged forward. Xin Yuanfeng and the others followed closely behind. HMPH. Cao Tianyi snorted coldly. Qin Ying, since you are not willing to join hands with me, then let's end this. I want to see if you have the ability to stop me in this life. Boom. A figure from the Great Qian Palace flew over, and the aura of a divine realm expert was displayed for all to see. The Heavenly Saint sect and the Great Evil Palace also had their divine realm experts appear. The Nine Swords Mountain Sword Master also appeared. The Pavilion Master of the Floating Flower Pavilion and the Yu family's Patriarch also appeared. As the divine realm experts behind each of them appeared, the outcome of the battle no longer depended on Qin Ying and the other Emperor realm cultivators. The Ling family's Patriarch also appeared. Out of the three great families of the eastern region, only the Ji family had not appeared here. The Su family of the central region did not have a divine realm expert. Qin Ying, you'll definitely lose even if you plan for another lifetime, Cao Tianyi sneered. In the Great Qian Palace, another divine realm expert appeared. Moreover, looking at the divine realm experts that had appeared, Cao Tianyi's side seemed slightly stronger. The Sword Master of Nine Swords Mountain was a third-level divine realm expert. The Floating Flower Pavilion Master and the Yu family's Patriarch were both first-level divine realm cultivators. The Ling family's Patriarch was also at the first level of the divine realm. However, the Heavenly Saint sect's divine realm expert was at the third level of the divine realm. As for the Great Qian Palace's divine realm experts, one was at the third level of the divine realm and the other was at the first level of the divine realm. Soon after, an old man holding a pill cauldron appeared. The founding patriarch of the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain was at the first level of the divine realm. Haha, I'll never allow human race traitors to live. A figure appeared. He was the founder of the Kashan Alliance. He was a famous itinerant cultivator expert from the northern zone who had founded the Independent Cultivator Alliance. Second level of the divine realm. With the appearance of these divine realm experts, regardless of whether it was the heaven realm experts or the other cultivators, they all held their breaths and prepared to escape. If a battle between them broke out, just the shockwaves from the battle would be enough to destroy them. Legendary divine realm experts had appeared one after another. The landscape of the northern zone was about to change. Qin Ying returned to the camp and stared coldly at Cao Tianyi's side. He then looked at Mo Hongliu and said, the demon race elder should be you, right? Ha, that was in my previous life. In this life, I am the holy son of the Heavenly Saint sect. Mo Hongliu chuckled and said, I have the bloodline of the human race now. Naturally, I can participate in the fight for the fate treasures. Qin Ying nodded and did not say anything. He looked at the evil sun and pondered for a moment before saying, are you the southern region's evil lord? Yes and no. The evil sun nodded, and then shook his head. He smiled and said, Qin Ying, actually, I admire you. However, a grudge is a grudge. The evil lord who was chased out of the southern region and the northern zone by me became the current ancestor of the Great Evil Palace, and also reached the divine realm, right? Qin Ying could not help but sigh. Back then, he despised the evil lord very much. He did not expect that after his reincarnation, he would actually encounter the evil lord's reincarnation. Xiezi smiled slightly. The divine realm expert that the Great Evil Palace had sent out was not his original body. Others thought that he was a reincarnation, but in fact, he was not a proper reincarnation. He was just a reincarnation of a split soul. Of course, he also had the memories of his original body. He had to walk a new path and ascend to a higher realm. The cultivation progress of his original body had already ground to a halt. Grandfather, show yourself, Qin Ying called out to the sky. He still remembered his master's promise that he would not allow anyone above the Emperor realm to interfere in the fight for the fate treasures. Now, all of the divine realm experts had appeared. However, Cao Tianyi had not revealed his trump card yet. It was time to force his hand. The appearance of the Luo family would unify their forces, and those who were neutral or watching from the sidelines would join his side. Qin Ying believed that since his master had given his word, he would definitely do it. The final battle would still be decided by the Emperor realm cultivators. Cao Tianyi, Mo Hongliu, and the Evil Sun were all peerless Emperor realm experts. Although the experts from his side were inferior, they could still obtain an advantage in terms of the number of Emperor realm experts. Moreover, there were still extremely powerful Emperor realm experts in the northern zone. For example, the sword Dao expert who had blocked Cao Tianyi and saved Shen Yuanfeng and Pang Xinghai. Luo Ming appeared. His 5th level Dao realm cultivation was undoubtedly the strongest among the divine realm experts present. Behind him were the elders of the Luo family. Cao Tianyi lured the demon race to invade and intended to harm his fellow humans. I am Luo Ming of the Eastern Zone's Luo family, and a descendant of the human king. Are you all determined to follow Cao Tianyi and rebel against the human race? As soon as these words were said, the expressions of Cao Tianyi's forces changed. The human king's Luo family. Although it was not the human king of the Northern Zone, they were still the family of a human king of the human race. They had the right to uphold justice. Furthermore, each human king family had countless supporters. Furthermore, Luo Ming was the strongest divine realm expert present. Cao Tianyi's expression changed slightly and he started laughing maniacally. Haha, Qin Ying, the human king's Luo family. Impressive. Is this the basis for your confidence? Qin Ying, I, Cao Tianyi, have never submitted to anyone before. You are the first person to foil my plans. Now, you are using the might of the human king's family to disrupt my plans again. Good, great Qin Emperor. Cao Tianyi's voice became colder and colder, however, so what? If it's the Wang family. In this world, strength matters. I, Cao Tianyi, have my own methods. Boom, a powerful aura could be felt from afar. Following that, another powerful aura appeared. Luo Ming's expression changed. The newcomer's strength was not lower than the 7th level of the divine realm. 2 powerful figures appeared on Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu's sides, emitting powerful spiritual pressure on those present. The expressions of all the divine realm experts present changed drastically. The 2 figures looked similar to Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu. They were their original divine realm bodies, and also their trump cards. Back then, the 2 of them were both peerless existences who had reached the 9th level of the divine realm. However, because they reincarnated and used some secret technique to maintain the existence of the divine bodies, the strength of their original bodies had weakened. Still, their bodies still possessed the power of an 8th level divine realm cultivator. So what if you have the backing of the Luo family? Strength is everything. If your Luo family has experts at the 8th or 9th level of the divine realm, I, Cao Tianyi, will turn around and leave without saying a word. So what if I offend the Luo family? After obtaining the fate treasures, I, Cao Tianyi, will surely ascend to the top and one day stand shoulder to shoulder with every human king. Cao Tianyi laughed arrogantly. Luo Ming's face turned gloomy. He did not know where the ancestors of the Luo family, who were at the 8th or 9th level of the divine realm, were. Even if he asked for help, he did not know when they would return. However, he did not panic. The human king's family was still a human king's family. He took out a jade book and said coldly, Cao Tianyi, if you dare to attack my Luo family will issue the human king's order. The human king's families will join forces to exterminate you. This was the privilege of a human king's family, and also represented a tacit understanding between the families. If one family issued the human king's order when they were in great danger, the other human king's families would join forces to eliminate the enemy who was targeting the human king's family. Chapter 237. The Death of a Divine Realm Expert, Terror. The longevity of the human king's families was not only due to the blessings and inheritances of the human kings, it was also due to the tacit understanding between the human king's families. Even if a major force targeted a human king's family, they would not dare to dream of destroying it. Otherwise, if all the other human kings' families joined hands, they would be an extremely terrifying force that even the strongest and luckiest heaven's blessed would find hard-pressed to survive. The human kings' families represented righteousness, and were able to rally under that banner to summon the other major forces of the human race to act. Occasionally a human king's family would lose their banner of righteousness when one of their members committed evil acts and tarnished the ancestor's reputation. However, although the human king's families would produce deviant offspring who committed unscrupulous acts from time to time, they never allowed it to affect the family. Every time this was discovered, they would hunt down and kill those evildoers. Furthermore, after killing them, that human king's family would not be able to issue the human king's order for some time. After all, having the human king's order casually issued would devalue the prestige and meaning behind the human king's order. The Luo family had not had problems with such people, and as such had the right to issue the human king's order. Moreover, Cao Tianyi had once betrayed the human race by luring the demons to invade the southern region. If his forces attacked the Luo family in addition to that, they were completely warranted in issuing the human king's order. Human king's order. Cao Tianyi sneered. My original body has already reached the divine realm. How much can the human king's order do to a divine realm expert? Luo Ming's heart sank. Indeed, the human king's order was usually used to gather experts to deal with the demons or to punish the rebels. More than absolute strength, they relied on numbers to suppress their enemies. Against a divine realm expert, numbers were meaningless. Unless a human king took action personally, such an order would do little to deter a divine realm expert. Even if they did manage to wound the divine realm expert, he or she could simply hide the desolate ancient zone. It would be impossible for cultivators below the divine realm to enter and leave that place safely. Cao Tianyi had obtained a fate treasure that allowed him to maintain his divine realm original body. With time, the strength of his original body would definitely recover to its original level. Mo Hongliu sneered and said, Brother Cao might not dare to attack the Luo family, but I, Mo Hongliu, have no problems doing so. At worst, he could just return to the demon zone. The human race would not be able to do anything then. The hearts of Qin Ying's forces started to sink. Even the human king's family could not intimidate Cao Tianyi. What could they do now? These two were at the 8th level of the divine realm. Even if the divine realm experts present joined hands, they would not be able to resist these two. The gap between their levels was too big. Even though Cao Tianyi's god body was in a magical state, he was still a peerless expert at the 8th level of the god realm. All of the heaven realm and emperor realm cultivators held their breaths. They were extremely nervous. It was one thing for the legendary divine realm warriors to appear one after another. However, two high-level divine realm experts had suddenly appeared. Moreover, judging from the current situation, Qin Ying's side was about to lose. Some forces that were originally inclined towards Qin Ying started to waver. In the small courtyard, Chu Zan also noticed this and felt that it was time for Ren Chang to make his appearance. He had to keep his promise to Qin Ying. Moreover, he was the one with the greatest advantage when it came to Emperor Realm cultivators. The strength of Ding Yu and the others were all at the absolute peak of the Emperor Realm. They were all children of fate, not to mention that Qin Ying definitely had a contingency plan to secure the fate treasures. The fate treasures would definitely belong to one of his disciples in the end. The fate treasures were crucial to the progress of the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan. By using the fate treasures, he would be able to accelerate the process of integrating and assimilating the laws of heaven and earth in the different regions. Once he had replaced the laws of heaven and earth in the northern zone with the Heavenly Tao laws, he would control the Heavenly Tao laws, and even if a more powerful Tao realm expert attacked, he would be able to rely on the power of the Heavenly Tao laws of the entire northern zone to suppress them. Ever since he found out that the end of this Daoyuan was approaching, Chu Zan had been engulfed by a sense of crisis. He had a feeling that something would definitely happen to the 9 zones. In order to safely cultivate in his courtyard, it was necessary to extend the range of his control and influence. He immediately had Ren Chang move out to issue his order that no one above the Emperor Realm was allowed to participate in the battle for the Asura ancient land. If he wanted Cao Tianyi to acquiesce, he would have to use absolute strength to intimidate everyone. Perhaps he needed to make a move personally. Chu Zan took out the soul-chasing bow. Through the heaven-spying mirror, he could lock onto anyone. Although he was at a disadvantage, Qin Ying did not panic at all. At this moment, a figure appeared, who was surrounded by the aura of life and death, and he was shrouded in the great Tao of Yin and Yang. His 7th level divine realm cultivation level was fully displayed. Even though he was only 1 level lower, the imposing aura he exuded was not one whit weaker than Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu's divine realm bodies. On behalf of the eternal, immortal, handsome, unparalleled, mighty, virtuous, supreme and holy number 1 Tao Master in the myriad realms, anyone above the Emperor Realm is forbidden to participate or interfere in the battle for the fate treasures. Anyone who disobeys this order will be killed without mercy. Ren Changhai's imposing aura surged majestically. He looked down at Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu. Anyone who dared to disobey his master's order would die. So what if the other party had 8th level divine realm bodies? Those were just bodies that existed due to the preservation of special techniques and treasures. They were lacking compared to actual complete bodies. Ren Chang could easily fight them. Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu were stunned. Everyone present was stunned. Supreme and holy number 1 Tao Master. And all those other different titles. Was that not going too overboard? Cao Tianyi was about to open his mouth to mock Ren Chang, but the 3rd level divine realm expert from the Heavenly Saint sect spoke up first. What bullshit, supreme and holy number 1 Tao Master? If you want to interfere, just say so. There's no need to pretend to be so high and mighty. Chu Zan narrowed his eyes. Old man, you're courting death. He thought that the first one to jump out and question him would be Cao Tianyi or Mo Hongliu. It would then be a good opportunity to destroy their divine bodies and intimidate everyone there. Since this fellow from the Heavenly Saint sect jumped out, then he would make an example out of him. How could my name be mocked? He would definitely suffer a calamity. Chu Zan drew his bow and used the heaven spying mirror to lock onto the Heavenly Saint sect's divine realm expert. An arrow appeared and the power of the Tao of Destruction lingered around it. It flew out and disappeared into space. Before the Heavenly Saint sect's divine realm expert could say anything further, a terrifying pressure suddenly descended. A beam of light carrying the Tao of Destruction descended without any warning. Mo Hongliu was shocked. He could not even release his divine aura, nor did he have time to escape. He only barely managed to channel some of his divine power to create a weak shield around him. No, the Heavenly Saint sect divine realm expert let out a scream, after which he turned into dust and disappeared. Following that, there was a rumbling sound. The world shook. Blood-colored light lingered in the sky as drops of blood-colored rain fell. A divine realm expert had fallen. Cao Tianyi, Mo Hongliu, and the rest of the divine state experts turned pale with fright. The people from the Heavenly Saint sect were especially frightened. They almost peed their pants. At the same time, they were grateful that the terrifying existence had not targeted them. However, this was the more terrifying part. Such a terrifying attack had easily killed a divine realm expert, but the people next to that expert were completely unharmed. It was extremely terrifying. Ren Cheng was also extremely shocked. As expected of his master. Just mocking his name had summoned a calamity from the heavens. Calming his mind, he said coldly, "Arrogant fool, how dare you offend the eternal, immortal, handsome, unparalleled, mighty, virtuous, supreme and holy number one Tao Master in the myriad realms. You summoned the wrath of the heavens. Who else dares to disobey? In the fight for the fate treasures, those above the Emperor realm may not interfere or participate. Those who disobey this order will die." Then, he stared at Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu's divine realm bodies and said coldly, "Your original bodies cannot participate or interfere. Otherwise, they too will be destroyed." Chapter 238, Feng Shaoqing. Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu's hearts trembled as they looked at the rain of blood that was still falling. They were unable to regain their composure for a long time. It was too terrifying. Was this person a supreme existence above the divine realm? They were glad that the supreme existence did not side with anyone. Otherwise, how could they compete? They would not be able to use their trump cards. However, their own cultivation levels were absolutely top-notch. They still could rely on the strength of their reincarnated bodies to fight for the fate treasures. In the battle for the Asura ancient land, besides Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu, no one knew that there was a third divine realm expert involved. The reason why the news of the two of them dying together had spread was because that divine realm expert was killed by the two of them working together. Similarly, blood rain fell, which is why they decided to create the illusion that they had died together. Qin Ying had a backup plan, but so did they. Once the Asura ancient land opened, it was still unknown who would be the last one to laugh. Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu looked at each other. They immediately came to a tacit understanding. It was time to join hands. Then, they looked at the evil sun. The enemy of the enemy was a friend. The evil sun's enemy was Qin Ying. There was enmity between the two of them. Naturally, they could become temporary allies. The evil sun nodded and agreed to join forces. If he obtained just one of the fate treasures, he would be able to complete his plan. Ren Cheng looked at all the divine and heaven realm experts present and said, "Those above the Emperor realm, regarding this order, does anyone have an objection?" Luo Ming took the lead and said, "We accept the Supreme One's order." Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu's divine realm experts also replied affirmatively. Who dared to object? The guy who had spoken disrespectfully just now had already been turned into ashes. Since that's the case, everyone above the Emperor realm should leave. Ren Cheng stared at Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu's divine realm bodies and said, "Especially you two. If you dare to play tricks and borrow the power of your divine realm bodies, I will kill you." Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu's gazes turned cold, but they did not say anything. They did not have their past strength, and there was a terrifying existence behind this person. At this moment, another figure suddenly appeared. Chu Yi. He swept his gaze around and said coldly, "Those who haven't shown themselves don't need to show themselves either. If you dare to interfere secretly, be prepared to be killed without mercy." His aura erupted, which had reached the peak of the divine realm, and there was even a faint trace of Tao aura circulating around his body. He had clearly reached the threshold of the Tao realm. All of the divine realm experts were shocked. In the distance, 2 more divine realm experts appeared. They maintained their silence and did not approach. Chu Yi's figure then disappeared. Those above the Emperor realm must not step within 1,000 miles of the Asura ancient land. Otherwise, they will be killed without mercy. Ren Changhai's heart trembled. Was this master's servant? He was too powerful. He then followed Chu Yi and disappeared into the distance. Luo Ming looked at Qin Ying and said, "Don't let senior down." Qin Ying nodded and said, "I won't let master down." All of the divine and heaven realm experts retreated thousands of miles away. No one dared to disobey. Cao Tianyi's eyes were cold as he stared at Qin Ying and said coldly, "Do you think that you can win now that the fight is between Emperor realm cultivators?" Mo Hongliu, the evil son, and Cao Tianyi gathered together, including the forces under their command. The assembly of their forces was stronger than Qin Ying's forces. The other forces remained neutral. They even thought that they could benefit from the fight between these two sides. Qin Ying's forces lacked experts who were capable of fighting against Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu. Still, they did not start fighting immediately. Instead, they looked around at the neutral forces. For now, there was nothing to be afraid of. Only one side could not be underestimated, which was Ding Yu and the others. Ding Yu had once saved Pang Xinghai and Xin Yuanfang. This meant that he favored Qin Ying. This group was what Cao Tianyi was more afraid of. Therefore, he did not want to start a big fight before the Asura ancient land fully opened. Once they entered the Asura ancient land, he would have the advantage. Otherwise, if Ding Yu and the others joined hands with Qin Ying, he would definitely lose. A figure flew over from afar. "Cousin, I'm here to lend you a hand." It was the simp Zhu Yuanbai. Upon hearing this voice, Qin Ying's mood took a turn for the worse. This cousin of his was even more annoying than a buzzing fly. However, Zhu Yuanbai was actually very strong. If he joined hands with any one of his brothers, they would be able to deal with the evil son. He could be considered a great help in their time of need. Another group of 10 or so people walked over. The person in the lead was elegant and handsome. Qin Ying narrowed his eyes and looked at the other party. Another outer zone force had joined the fray. Feng Xiaoqing greets everyone, and greets Miss Luo. Feng Xiaoqing cupped his fists and said politely, "The northern region of the southern zone's human king's Feng family?" Qin Ying asked in a deep voice. "That's right. Please forgive me for coming uninvited, Miss Luo." Feng Xiaoqing nodded. All of the cultivators present were shocked. It was another human king's family. "Are you going to help Qin Ying?" Cao Tianyi's face was gloomy. No, I won't interfere in the grudges between the two of you," Feng Xiaoqing waved his hand and said. He was here to reap the benefits. A person walked out from the Heavenly Saint sect and sneered, "Another human king's family member." Nowadays, the reputation of the human king's family isn't very useful. The battle for treasures always relies on one's own strength. My strength is average, but I also want to experience the strength of a human king's descendant. This was to test Feng Xiaoqing's strength. Feng Xiaoqing was still polite and smiled gently, acting as if he was a person with a good temper. "My strength is average and I'm ashamed to be called a descendant of a human king. This brother is very powerful. I'm ashamed to admit that I'm not as good as you." Feng Xiaoqing cupped his hands and said nonchalantly. "So you're saying that the reputation of the Feng family's human king is not worth its salt? If you guys don't have the strength to back it up, then you should stop calling yourselves a human king's family." The Emperor Realm expert of the Heavenly Saint sect mocked Feng Xiaoqing. "I think that this brother is tired of living. Fine, I'll fulfill your wish." Feng Xiaoqing was smiling the whole time. However, his body moved and raised his hand to make a grabbing motion. Screech! A huge bird that looked like the legendary phoenix flew out from Feng Xiaoqing's palm. It was as fast as lightning and it pounced toward the Emperor Realm expert of the Heavenly Saint sect. "Hey!" The Heavenly Saint sect's Emperor Realm expert raised his saber and slashed. His aura surged, but all of his attacks passed through the huge bird. He did not manage to block the attack. The huge bird instantly enveloped his body and burst into a ball of scorching flames. Ah! A miserable cry sounded out. The flames disappeared and so did that expert's body. He had killed a 9th-level Emperor Realm expert with one strike. Feng Xiaoqing was still smiling politely. "I don't like killing people." All the Emperor Realm cultivators present were geniuses who were selected from their pool of outstanding disciples. The Emperor Realm expert of the Heavenly Saint sect who came with Mo Hongliu naturally was not weak. At this moment, everyone's expressions turned solemn. As expected of a descendant of a human king's family, their strength had completely surpassed that of ordinary geniuses. Perhaps only a few people like Cao Tianyi could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Chapter 239, Little Evil King vs. Evil Son. Mo Hongliu's facial expression darkened. Another formidable opponent. Feng Xiaoqing's strength was no weaker than his. At the same time, he sighed. The human race was indeed worthy of being the true overlord race of the 9 zones. This human king's descendant was so talented. Among the heavenly demon tribe, there were probably only a few who were on par with him. In addition, there was not just one human king's family, and not just one descendant. Very strong. Wang Luo looked at Feng Xiaoqing and said, "His flames are no weaker than my heavenly void flames." Shang Xing also nodded and said, "He is indeed very strong. However, when it comes to playing with fire, I am equally as capable." If they were to really fight, both Shang Xing or Wang Luo would be able to match Feng Xiaoqing. Although the two of them were not known for their combat strength, they had many tricks up their sleeves. After showing off, Feng Xiaoqing greeted Qin Ying with a smile. Then, he led his men and occupied a small hill to wait for the Asura ancient land to open. Qin Ying walked out, halberd in hand, and pointed at Cao Tianyi, saying, "Scoundrel Cao, do you dare to fight me? Aren't you going to take revenge for having your plan foiled? I'm waiting for you." "Good, good, it just so happens that I want to experience the power of the great Qin Emperor as well." Cao Tianyi walked out with a dark expression. Golden light blossomed around him. The god-slaying saber aura and his golden fists were activated. There was even a golden hammer floating above his head, the god-slaying golden hammer. When he was fighting against Peng Xinghai and Xin Yuanfang, he had not used this weapon, but he had no choice but to take extra precautions when facing Qin Ying. Wielding her halberd, Qin Ying exuded a domineering aura, and her graceful body was filled with terrifying power. Scales also suddenly appeared, covering her entire body. Then, that domineering aura of hers became even more piercingly cold. Everyone's expressions changed when they saw this. What a ferocious domineering aura! Even though he had been reincarnated as a woman, he had retained his domineering aura. As expected of the great Qin Emperor, who had once unified the southern region and had shaken the northern zone. Cao Tianyi's expression also changed slightly. Qin Ying's physical body was actually this terrifying, and not inferior to his own god-slaying golden physique. In fact, it was even more domineering. Feng Xiaoqing narrowed his eyes as he looked at Qin Ying in shock. This doesn't seem to be one of the Luo family's secret techniques. What kind of technique is this? Was it something he cultivated in his previous life? That's not right. In his previous life, his physique was special and he possessed the overlord physique. In this life, after being reincarnated as a woman, he should no longer be able to exude such a domineering aura. Feng Xiaoqing pondered all this in his heart. Qin Ying was very strong, and no weaker than he was at all. It was very likely that Qin Ying was the strongest person within the same realm among the younger generation of the Luo family. Qin Ying had cultivated his tyrant dragon body to the point where he could now utilize the domineering aura from his previous life. Moreover, the tyrant dragon body possessed unmatched power. With the addition of some of the techniques passed down by Chu Zan, in terms of strength, he was even stronger than he had been in his previous life. What a domineering aura! What kind of body tempering technique does junior brother Qin cultivate? Ding Yu muttered in surprise. This kind of body tempering technique suits junior sister Qin very well. Wang Luo sighed with emotion. It should be junior brother Qin. Ding Yu corrected him. Senior brother, he is now a woman. Of course, he is our junior sister. Junior brother, you are wrong. We cultivators of the Supreme Way do not have women in our hearts. Since junior brother Qin was a man in his previous life, even if he has become a woman, he should still be treated as a man. Ding Yu corrected him with a serious expression. If you treat him as a woman, this shows that you still have a desire for a woman in your heart. Wang Luo replied with shame, senior brother is right, it should be junior brother Qin. My comprehension of the Supreme Way is still insufficient. Heiyu's mouth twitched as she listened to their conversation from the side. Before Qin Ying and Cao Tianyi could start their fight, the evil son walked out. I will join hands with brother Cao. He looked at Xin Yuanfang and the others with contempt. Humph. Xin Yuanfang walked out, sword in hand. The evil son waved his finger and said with contempt, you're not capable enough. You brothers should come at me together. If you pieces of trash don't work together, you're worthless. Ha ha. Xin Yuanfang's face turned ashen. Pang Xinghai and the others were the same. The evil son was too arrogant. He was the evil lord from back then. Although they were strong, he was stronger. Even though everyone here had reincarnated, the gap between them was too large. Xin Yuanfang and the others felt ashamed. They were too weak and could not share their big brother's burden. Pang Xinghai walked out. If they did not join forces, Xin Yuanfang alone would not be a match for the evil son. At this moment, a figure descended from the sky. A voice rang out from afar. It was filled with hatred as the person screamed, "Evil son, you deserve to die." Xin Yuanfang and Pang Xinghai stopped in their tracks. The evil son also stopped and looked toward the source of the voice. A man dressed in a flowery green robe with a fair face and no facial hair appeared. He pinched his thumb and index finger together, after which threads surrounded his body. He was holding a thin embroidery needle in his hand. His face was so pale that it did not look normal. His voice did not sound like a woman's, nor did it sound like a man's. He gave off a strange feeling that was hard to describe. His face was filled with anger, and his eyes shone with hatred. He stared at the evil son and gnashed his teeth as he said, "Evil son, you did not expect this, right? I am not dead yet. I have returned to take revenge on you." The person who had just arrived was none other than the little evil king. The evil son was his lifelong enemy. Not only did the evil son kill his father, but it was also because of him that he had severed his third leg. Every time he thought of this, the little evil king wished that he could swallow the evil son alive. "It's you." Xiaozi was really surprised. "That's right, it's me. Evil son, I'll take your life." The little evil king made his move. Whoosh, cold streaks of light appeared, as the threads around his body weaved together. A dagger was hidden in his hand. His body charged forward, leaving a few afterimages in its wake. It was impossible to distinguish the real body from the afterimages, and in an instant, he had surrounded the evil son. Fine threads crisscrossed, as the needles attacked the evil son from all directions soundlessly. The evil son was greatly alarmed. What kind of cultivation technique was this? Boom! Blood-red light surrounded the evil son and covered his entire body. He did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. The little evil king's strength had increased by leaps and bounds. Moreover, the cultivation technique he was using was very strange. His strange movements made it impossible for him to distinguish between real and fake. Those thin needles were silent and untraceable, making it impossible to guard against. A great battle between the little evil king and the evil son erupted. After a short while, the evil son felt a stab of pain run through his arm. A needle had actually penetrated his defenses and pierced his arm. Waves of icy cold aura pervaded his arm. It felt as if that aura would freeze his spiritual power. The moment they started exchanging blows, the evil son fell into a disadvantageous state. He was seemingly at a loss at what to do. The little evil king's cultivation techniques and attacks were all too strange, especially those thin needles and threads. Once he was entangled by them, it became difficult to extricate himself. The needles were fast, silent, and there were many of them. As he was facing them for the first time, the evil son was actually unable to find a way to deal with them. However, he was after all the reincarnation of a divine realm expert, and had plenty of combat experience. Hence, even though he was at a disadvantage, he was able to stabilize the situation and minimize his losses. Once he got used to the little evil king's strange techniques, he would no longer be so passive. Everyone was shocked. Where did all these heavens blessed come from? How could each of them be stronger than the last? This newcomer had actually suppressed the evil son. The geniuses present felt like the sky had fallen on them. Before these monsters appeared, they had all been considered the cream of the crop. However, they now realized that they were still far behind the true geniuses. Why was the gap between people so large? The heavens were unfair. Chapter 240, Venting Their Anger. On the small hill, Chu Yun looked at the little evil king in surprise. After disappearing for a period of time, the little evil king had actually become so powerful. However, why did he seem so strange? There was something wrong with him. In particular, that colorful robe he was wearing. His appearance was neither male nor female. It was too unusual. Could it be that he had cultivated some strange cultivation technique that had led to this? After the little evil king and the evil king started to fight. On the other side, Qin Ying and Cao Tianyi also started to fight. Boom! Qin Ying's domineering halberd directly crushed the god-slaying saber aura. His snow-white fist punched and directly crushed Cao Tianyi's golden fist strikes. The battle was very domineering. Cao Tianyi's heart trembled. Qin Ying's fighting style was too imposing and domineering. Qin Ying exuded the aura of an unmatched world dominator. When coupled with his female body, this aura coalesced to emanate a wild and special beauty. Zhu Yuanbai's eyes were shining. Cousin is too beautiful. Pang Xinghai and the others glared at him. However, what followed their anger was sorrow. At this moment, their big brother was indeed very beautiful. Cao Tianyi was once a divine realm expert, so his strength was naturally extraordinary. Those who could break through to the divine realm and were on the cusp of breaking through to the Tao realm were undoubtedly very talented. He did not back down in the slightest, and used a similarly overbearing fighting style to fight Qin Ying. Two contrasting fighting styles appeared on the battlefield. Qin Ying and Cao Tianyi were fighting head-on, overbearing against overbearing. Neither retreated, and with their powerful strength, they continued to attack each other. As for the little evil king, he was as elusive as a ghost, and his attacks were crafty and strange. His figure was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The evil son was constantly dodging and defending, trying to find an opening to counterattack. At this point, the evil son's body had already been pierced by a few needles, and he was feeling very uncomfortable. He did not seem to be outwardly injured, but in fact, the evil son knew that his injuries were not light. Those strange needles not only froze his spiritual power, but also his physical body. They were also able to invade the soul and freeze his soul power. Were it not for the fact that his soul was special, he might have already been severely injured. However, he had gradually gotten used to the little evil king's strange attacks, and was starting to respond with his own attacks. The little evil king seemed to have gone mad as he attacked fiercely, venting out the hatred he had accumulated in his heart. This person can be roped in. The enemy of our enemy is our friend. At the very least, he can help us deal with the great evil palace. Pang Xinghai said. Xin Yuanfeng and the others all agreed. Ding Yu and the others watched the battles. The battle between Qin Ying and Cao Tianyi was especially intense. Qin Ying's halberd was extremely domineering. Cao Tianyi, who was as powerful as him, was unable to gain any advantage against the former. The battle between the two sides became more and more intense. The mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. Many Emperor Realm cultivators who were watching started to retreat to avoid the shockwaves of the battle. The evil son and the little evil king were still fighting. It was difficult to determine the winner between them. Although the evil son had suffered some losses, it would not be easy for the little evil king to win outright. After the evil son had gotten used to his strange attacks, the fight gradually stabilized, and the two sides entered a stalemate. Looking at the current situation, whether it was the battle between Qin Ying and Cao Tianyi, or the battle between the evil son and the little evil king, both were at a standstill. It was even very likely that both fights would end in draws. As for whether they had any trump cards that they had not used, no one knew for certain. Although the battle seemed to be intense, it was actually not the time for them to fight to the death. Neither Qin Ying nor Cao Tianyi wanted to be embroiled in a life-and-death battle at this moment, as it would allow others to take advantage of them. At the very least, they had to wait until the Asura ancient land opened. Once inside, they would be able to use their trump cards to fight for the fate treasures. On the other hand, the little evil king really wanted to kill the evil son. He did not care about the fate treasures or the Asura ancient land. However, his current strength was not enough to accomplish the deed. Although he had injured the evil son, the latter's injuries were not fatal. Moreover, the evil son was not alone. If he was not careful and was injured himself, he would find himself surrounded by enemies. As such, the little evil king reigned in his killing intent. He also knew that the best opportunities for him to kill the evil son would appear inside the Asura ancient land. A moment's distraction might be all he needed to settle the score. Moreover, even if he could not kill the evil son, as long as he destroyed the fate treasure the latter obtained, he would be able to appease his anger. Chu Zan observed the battle between Qin Ying and Cao Tianyi. They were similarly strong. In the end, it was hard to say who would win or lose. After all, Cao Tianyi was once a divine realm expert. Even if he could not use his divine realm body, he must have prepared several trump cards and killing moves. Qin Ying was not simple either. Other than the secret technique he taught him, he was a direct descendant of the Luo family, so he had naturally mastered a lot of their secret techniques. Moreover, with the Luo family's foundation, how could they not have prepared a trump card for Qin Ying? Moreover, Qin Ying already had his own trump card. The human king's Dao weapon. The Dao weapon left behind by Luo Xinbai was a precious treasure that even Cao Tianyi probably did not have. From his previous life to this life, this Tao weapon had accompanied Qin Ying and had long since become one with him. Even if Qin Ying could not unleash its full power, it could still protect Qin Ying from death in crucial situations. At the very least, it would be able to protect Qin Ying's soul from being destroyed. Therefore, if they were to really fight to the death, Qin Ying had a slightly higher chance of winning. Chu Zan looked at the battle between the little evil king and the evil son. As expected, the evil warding immortal scripture really suited him. His cultivation level was pretty good, and his strength was decent too. He was able to display the unique aspects of the evil warding immortal scripture quite well. Although he was unable to defeat the evil son was similarly unable to defeat him. They were evenly matched. Of course, the evil son was the reincarnation of a divine realm soul, so it was normal for him to have some trump cards. However, the little evil king's fate had led him into Chu Zan's lucky mystic realm, which contained no shortage of treasures and even trump cards. Mo Hongliu, the divine realm demon elder, was also a strong competitor for the fate treasures. Chu Zan then looked at Feng Xiaoqing, the descendant of the human king's Feng family. As expected, other than Mo Hongliu, there was also someone else from the outer zones involved. Furthermore, it was another human king's family. Chu Zan was not sure about the Feng family's influence or power, as the Black Moon Tower's influence had not expanded into the southern zone yet. Nevertheless, Shangxing was from the eastern region of the southern zone, so he should possess some understanding regarding the Feng family. Chu Zan did not continue to pay attention to the battles any longer. Instead, he took out the heavenly Tao talisman and poured his Tao aura and Tao principles into it, strengthening it once more. The battle between Qin Ying and Cao Tianyi was soon over. This was a battle to vent their anger and resentment, and also to test each other's strength. They would continue the fight when they fought for the fate treasures. After the little evil king stabbed the evil son with a few more needles, the battle ended. His parting words were that as long as he was around, the evil son's plans would not succeed. The evil son's face was extremely gloomy. If the little evil king kept interfering and fighting him, he would be at a disadvantage in the fight for the fate treasures. He had never thought that this ant who he despised would become so much stronger in such a short period of time, strong enough to become a hindrance to his plans. Xin Yuanfang immediately tried to rope in the little evil king. The little evil king did not reject Xin Yuanfang's offer. After all, how could he defeat the evil son alone? He needed someone to help him fend off the other cultivators from the great evil palace so that he could focus on fighting the evil son and interfering with his plans to snatch the fate treasures.